Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is Cee, certified brewhead.
And I am Nathan from NathanDoesBeer.
Welcome to episode 152 of Beer Nuts, the podcast Adjunct series. Nathaniel, this evening we got a gem. This is a new brewery, sort of a new brewery to both of us. Familiar, had some of their older products, not some of the new stuff.
I've had some of the newer stuff in the last
Okay,
bit.
amazing.
Yes,
fantastic. I had some of the OG stuff. And these guys are a brewery in Toronto, if I didn't say that already. And they're doing something that is very close to our hearts, both you and I, with the styles that they make. And they are a primarily crispy-based brewery, as is the official terminology. So we're going to get into a whole bunch of crispy boys tonight, is what I'm trying to say. And Nathan and I are suitably stoked.
yes.
Yeah, man. I'm looking forward to hearing the story. We have a whole bunch of empty glasses that need to be filled here. So let's get this going. Folks, please welcome. Let me just get this unmute going so I have it going. Okay, yeah, got that one. Yeah. Please welcome Adam and Matt of True History Brewing in the building.
Welcome, fellas.
Welcome.
What an intro. Holy smokes.
Boys, we bring the crowd for the guests, you know. It's gotta be live up to what you deserve, you know. That's what we're here for. God damn it! Thank you for hanging out, boys. Appreciate you both.
Thank you for having us.
It's an honor and a pleasure. As I was saying, very excited to get into this. We have some phenomenal beers that we're both stoked for, and what we're going to do, we'll have a little bit of a fun with the selections. We're going to kind of do a round table. Everyone gets to choose the next beer. So we're starting off with Uncle Nathaniel here. Sir, would you like to choose the first beer?
Yes, indeed. So the one I chose that we're going to start with, I feel like the name is the perfect choice to kind of encapsulate what you guys are all about. So I think we're going to start with Just a Pils.
I kind of had a feeling.
Love it. Let's go. Yeah. Excuse me while I head to my fridge.
Yes.
Go for it.
Take your time. So, I need to get these more organized. Fantastic. Matt, what is this Just a Pils label based on a sort of like a German beer label?
No, I don't. I think this is so over time. And Adam, you can jump in if I ever get something wrong. Sorry, 1 second. I'm getting that.
No, you're good. You're good getting the delivery. Matt's on the delivery train tonight. I love it. He's got a team.
My short can appropriate Pilsner Urquell mug.
Ooh, let's
Oh, that's
go.
amazing.
Yeah, my buddy brought it. Our buddy, actually, Cody, Matt, brought it back to me. He lived in Germany for a while, and on his way back, he moved back to Toronto. He went by Pilsner Urquell and picked this up for me. So
That's exactly what you need.
A good mug. I went with our pint glass because I realized I didn't even have any mugs of ours in my place.
Oof. Is that
It just shows it just shows how much time I spend at the brewery. Yeah, you were saying about the labels.
Yeah, man.
I think
Yeah.
over the last, actually, Just a Pils is an interesting one to start and then talk about the labels, because I think it was like our first sort of decision to start moving our label design while still holding true to kind of like what we started in our designer, Tyler, who I'd love to talk about because I think he's super talented.
Of course.
Move into more of like a, European or classic American-inspired labels that Adam and I were just getting more and more into as we went on, and we kind of felt we wanted to, because we were brewing such classic styles, we wanted to nod towards that direction while still keeping it something that is kind of uniquely ours. But something that is new is the addition of these like metallic hits that we've been playing with, which is something that Adam kind of picked up on in the last probably within the last year, of just being like a fun little nod towards, again, those old classic styles. So that's something that we added. But this is probably the first label where when we saw it, we were like, oh, there's a direction here that maybe we should follow.
Is it
Nice.
that makes sense? So this is, it feels familiar to me, I guess, is what I'm asking. So it's not, it's just, maybe it's like unintentionally from the designer side. It just, I don't know what.
I think what Matt was saying is like, this is the first. Do we drink yet, or what do we?
Oh no, we can definitely drink. Yeah, please.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Gentlemen, cheers. Welcome again. Appreciate
Cheers.
y'all. This smells amazing. Look at that
Yeah,
clarity.
it does.
Yeah, so I think it's the first beer on the label where, like, I don't know, I think with anything, like whether it's the beers you're making or the cans you're, like your designer's designing, which you obviously have input on, or like the events you're throwing, whatever, there's an evolution over time, right? And I think that a lot of the times, like, I feel like every label, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, like we've put out, we've been like, oh, like in the moment you're like, this is new, it's the sickest one. And then like sometimes you look back and you're like, I don't know if that's us anymore, or we like it as much anymore, or whatever. And I think this is the first label where we got to a point where we really found, clearly we're doing very traditional styles and trying to approach it in very traditional ways, and people, the experience we want them to have is kind of like that when you go to Europe, if you've been lucky, like whether it's the Czech Republic or Germany, that very warm, inviting feeling you want them to have. I think this is the first label where we kind of tried to bring that to the actual artwork, where it was like classic, but also kind of brought something that was uniquely our own. So like the metallic hits are something that's recent. Like the original version of this label didn't have those metallic hits on it. So that's something we opened up our space. But we just really like I think our designer, like Tyler as well, like he kind of found a groove with us as much as we found a groove with him, and like what to ask for. And like we don't even really need to ask for much anymore outside of what the beer is called, the vibe we want, and that's it. And he kind of just nails it most of the time. And I think this is like the first one, like I was saying, that it's just like we really want it to be classic and have that like kind of nostalgic, like German kind of, whether it's like Augustiner, like Eyinger, like one of the classic Paulaner, like one of the classic breweries labels on like this 500 milliliter bottle that you would have, like if you're just walking the streets there. It's a better life they live over there.
Totally.
But yeah, this is kind of the first thing. And like you'll notice the labels that we all have for the beers that we drink together today, they kind of all follow that same suit, like kind of like a bit more of a fun twist, we think, on like that very classic aesthetic that you would get from those European beers.
Gotcha. That makes sense then. So it's sort of like intentionally looking at, it's intentionally nostalgic, maybe is the word I'm looking at. Because that's kind of how it just feels, but it's like I can't place it, but it feels familiar.
Yes.
Which is great. And the beer as well, by the way. This is fantastic. It's super clean, really nice. The malt profile is great. It's exactly like to styles, not too sweet. The great bitterness, like grassy, touched herbal. Nice bread, crackery kind of vibe going on. This is fantastic. Yeah. What are the is there any ingredients in this specifically that are like worthy of mention, whether it's the hops or is it like double decocted or anything like that?
It's pretty straightforward as far as like our, like for example, our Helles and our Pils, like we were talking about, we use a lot of like traditional methods with the brewing, like we use decoction a lot of the time, but on our Helles and the Pils, we don't do that, which is step mashed. So we're just using like classic like German malt from Weirmann, and then focusing on like all these beers, I guess kind of like we were talking about the other day, Craig, it's like you don't have a lot to work with, so you want to make sure what you are working with is like of the highest possible quality possible. So it's getting, like we use the Pilsner malt from Weirmann, we use German hops. So in this one we used Saaz and Sapphire. And I find that like, again, I don't usually, it's weird because I don't like to usually get too geeky about beers because I feel like I'm like making people just lose interest.
This is the place for it, if anywhere, brother. You're good.
Remember, we're here for a reason. Like those low alpha acid hops that I think it's not necessarily the most efficient way to use hops because you're spending more money because you need more to get that bitterness. But I think that bitterness that you achieve is a lot more full on the palate. It's not so isolated. It's not so abrupt. And that flavor you're talking about, like that herbaceousness, that grassiness, that kind of like almost like background citrusy kind of thing is a lot more, it's more prevalent, but it's not in your face, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. And so just trying to use those classic noble hops and ingredients that they use traditionally in Pilsner, that's what we do. And then our biggest ingredient with all our beers is time, right? Just letting them sit and ferment and condition for as long as until they're ready. Matt will tell you sometimes it's like I probably go overboard with it, but you know,
I would say we've got. I think one of the advantages we have right now is the amount of time that we can put into these beers because we are relatively new, so we're still getting used to our system, and we are, you know, there's the opportunity to take a little bit more time now than when we have, you know, you hope to grow into a space where you hope to grow into a situation where time becomes a more of a constraint than necessary. But right now we've got the time, so you might as well use it, right? I think rushing something just to rush it doesn't make any sense. We don't have any situations where we feel like we need to be pressing these beers, and I think the results speak for themselves. So at the end of the day, you kind of like, you get addicted to using that time. So as much as like maybe early on, I would agree with you, Adam. I think like over time, you're just like, man, if the beer is really good, so let's just make good beer.
And it's not like we're ever going to rush anything out.
No,
it's more just like for example, like this batch is conditioned for 10 weeks. That's not really like it's better than it would be at 7, but it's like diminishing returns. You know what I mean? So if we get to a point where it's like, I gotta have this out in 7 weeks, that's great. That means we need more beer out and all these things, right? Like it's just it's juggling those two things. But now, like, we have the luxury. It's we try to use it as much as possible so that we can get together and drink beers like this and hopefully enjoy them more.
That's awesome. How is there a like an agreed upon point where the law of diminishing returns kicks in, or is it sort of like you guys are tasting it and you're like, yeah, it's not getting any, this is it type of thing?
Are you saying agreed upon between us two or like amongst people in general?
Do you know what? Both.
I think for between us two, so kind of the way that Adam and I work from the brewing side is I leave Adam to his own devices up until it affects I'd say sales. So I do a lot of like our offsite sales and our licensee sales. So I would say that like the only time when we'd have that like earnest conversation would be in those situations where it's like, hey, we need something to sell to people to make money to keep making beer. And if there is, you know, that conversation of like, okay, we know it's going to be better at, let's say, 10 weeks, but we're 7 weeks in and we need this beer, then you just go like, okay, we got to package it. But like Adam was saying, I think something that we've agreed upon together, whether it's tacitly or like implicitly or explicitly, is that we will never package something if it's not ready. We've yet to ever have to dump a beer because of quality. We've yet to, I think, put out a beer that we don't feel at the very least satisfied with, and I hope that we never will have to. And at the very least, if we have to do it, it's because of a fluke or an error or something. It's not because we rushed something or did something that was against maybe our philosophy or the way that we want to present this brewery and this brand, I guess. Okay.
That makes sense. That's great that you guys have. How long have you been open for now? A year and a bit, right?
Is about 16 months, I think.
16 months.
Just over 16 months.
So that's pretty sweet. No dump batches. I feel like the dumping batches is definitely a very, very common thing. So I mean, like, that's awesome. So congrats on that. That's sick that you guys have been able to get to that point as well so early on. But I guess that means there would. I guess every beer would have that diminishing returns. Like every style, perhaps, might have a sort of thing. So it's.
I used to again. I'm trying to think. I think a lot of people now, like a lot of what I hear often, and like again, Craig. Sorry, Nate, and like Matt's heard me say this a million times, but Craig and I had this like chat the other day, so I'm going to reference it a couple times because we talked briefly about a bunch of this stuff. But it's like a lot of what I hear these days is when it comes to lager is it's kind of like, well, you can make a good beer or good enough beer by doing it this way. And like most of the time when you say that, whether it's you only condition it for this amount of time or you ferment at this temperature, any points, like lager is a pretty like restrained beer. And what I think it is like if you can isolate any step in your process, if you really boil it down, it's like not a huge deal. But if you change or cut corners on all these really important bunch of steps along that process, it results in a big change in your final product in either direction, right? So a lot of people say, hey, well, we can do it this long or whatever, and it'll be fine, and they're right. But what we try and do and what we have found, and like what I would argue respectfully, pretty strongly in favor of, is that if we're talking specifically about time and tank and how long you let your lager sit to mature and like get that roundness and kind of like, you know, like when we're young and we're like out there, we're kind of just running all over the place. We're teenagers, we're in our 20s, we're going crazy. And then now we're respectable young adults like we are now, and we'll be fine.
Somewhat respectable, yeah.
The world loves us, right? Like it's kind of like, it's kind of the same thing, right? And like I think that for me, if you want to actually get down to an exact point, what I found with our beers is that there's this point when you get to a round of conditioning, like the 5 or 6 week mark, and it kind of depends on the beer, but it's usually within there where you're tasting it and you're like, oh, it's good, there's nothing wrong with it, whatever, and then it just hits this point and you're like, oh, now we're talking. And that from that point on, it still gets better, but it's not that same kind of drastic week to week increase. You know what I mean? So like, for example, one of the beers we're going to drink tonight is our Sticks, right? Our Oktoberfest Märzen, which we didn't quite. Traditionally, Märzen was brewed in March and conditioned until September when it was served at Oktoberfest. Ours was, just because of tank space, was not quite that. We got it in like, it was either like the last week of April or beginning of May. So it had like 4.5 months of conditioning there, which is a long time. Yeah. The last month of that, was there a huge difference? No. Was there a difference? Yes. Is it kind of like, to be honest, for the traditional aspect of it and like a bit of like quote unquote a shtick? Yes. Like a beer doesn't need to sit that long, but it does get somewhat better. But like the point from like week 5 to 6 versus month 5 to 6 is obviously, you know, not the same, at least from what I've gathered.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
No, that's actually a really good example. That basically answers exactly what I'm looking for. I ask mostly because I don't know if they're like, you know, I usually hear, you know, 6 weeks is usually kind of like what most breweries who would just do a lager as opposed to specialize in it typically would say. But I know that there's, you know, every style has their different requirements, and like you said, I was just always curious about like, oh, like, you know, week 5 to week 10, is that much of a difference? So
right.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I also think that like it kind of is important like what you do before that, right? Like for us, like we pay a lot of attention to whether it's every step of the process, whether you're what you're mashing in at, like what's your water, like what's your per beer that you're brewing, like what is your water profile? For us, like we use RO at the brewery, so we build up all of our water to style based on the beer we're brewing, right? All these little things, how long are you boiling for? When are your hop additions? All those things, you're decocting, okay, how are you doing that? You can do all these things. What's your fermentation temperature at, right? Like if you're not doing those in a certain way that's going to benefit your beer, you can condition a beer as long as you want. But if you didn't put it in the condition to succeed, right, then it's not, I don't think it's going to be as good as it possibly can, right? So it's kind of like, and I'm not saying that I was saying that I'm never happy with any beer that we put out, to be honest. But it's like, you know, you get better and better and closer to that, hopefully. And you try and like adjust things along the way based on what you've seen and what you've done to like get closer to the point you want to be at, which also that finishing point is different for everyone as well too, right? Like what you love in a Pils, I might not, or Nate, you do, I might, you know, what you might not love, I might love. So it's like, that's why, like, you know, when we get into like the rating aspect of things and talking about it, it's like, it's so subjective, right? Like there's people can like and people can not like, and that's what makes it go around. I think we can all agree that a Pils shouldn't be probably sour or things like that, but like once you get past that, then it's kind of just like dealer's choice in a lot of ways, right?
I like that, and I guess that's keeps it interesting, because if there's multiple breweries who do, you know, whatever large variety, almost exclusively lagers and pilsners and their offshoots, like if everything was identical, then that would probably make that redundant. But they are different. I've had breweries, I don't want to say sort of names, but I've had breweries how do I say this without like trying to call people out? I've had a brewery who does this type of stuff tell me that they didn't like the beers from another brewery who does this type of stuff, and I was shocked because they thought they were too bitter or something. I forgot what it was. And I think both of those breweries are spectacular, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So that means that the brewery who thought the other brewery was too bitter just has their particular preference. And I imagine that, if you do those two side by side, you probably notice that. So I was like, okay, interesting. I thought it was weird at first, but now when you're saying it makes more sense.
Yeah, and it's nice having someone like Matt, who's like a friend and a business partner as well, because like he knows, I think, just by brushing up on now like some of the aspects of brewing and like the process, whatever. But more often than not, you ask like when like at what point do we think the conditioning is done? Like if Matt will tell you, like usually I just walk out of the back and I'm like, here, try this, and he gives like feedback based on like it's nice to have it just from someone who drinks beer perspective in a lot of ways, right? Like. He's not going to be like, oh, what did you do on your mash here? He's just going to be like, this is kind of good. Or like, this is like, you know what I mean? Correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, but it's kind of like you're coming at it from like a more consumer-ish standpoint where you know what you're talking about, but you can't, you're not going to like give, like, I can take back to my little troll cave. Like, you adjust.
Yeah, I would never give notes on, I don't think I've ever given a note on a beer that's been taken off the tank in the sense of like a what's the word, like as something to use. It's more just like I kind of look at things from like, oh, I know where these are going to go, because I think we've been doing this long enough now to be like, oh, I see that this is going to round into form really nicely because of where it is right now, and I think that's more interesting. And yeah, like I do think that there's a value of like just kind of coming at it from the other side of the bar perspective, almost, of just being like, oh, this is going to do something different that we're doing. Like it's annoying because it's like the salesy type of thing, but it's like, oh, this slots into maybe the portfolio in a certain way, and that is like exciting and that's interesting, versus like being like, oh, the hop profile on this one is exceptional. It's like, it's like, this just does taste good. This tastes really nice. And this is evolving in such a nice way. Like, I don't think we've really like done, and I think it'd be interesting to do like an actual, like every single week of a beer in the process. I'm sure Adam and Joey have been doing it, but like, I've never sat down and been like, okay, here's week one, or once we're into like fermentation, like, and then conditioning, like 1, 2, 3, 4, and like see that process. And I think that I don't know if I'd want to. I think that'd be kind of redundant for me, because it's like I kind of just like I take it when Adam wants to give it, because to me that's Adam saying like, oh, okay, this is now ready. He talks about his troll cave. He's like showing whatever he's been building back there. It's like, I built this thing. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Sometimes it's not fully ready yet, but it's like, oh, it's cool to see it like now. I see where you're going with it, and that's really cool.
That's
I do check in on beers every week.
I know, I'm sure you do. I haven't like sat down and like done that process. But I think it'd be interesting, but I don't think I'd get the same value out of it as like getting it when Adam's delivering it, because I think that step of like, Adam saying like, okay, well, it's here now, so you should try it now, I think is valuable. It's like, it'd be weird to go into like a kitchen with a chef and be like, I'm going to taste it now. They're like, well, no, there's no point in tasting it now. Like, you don't have to taste the end, but like, there's going to be a step. It's just like, yeah, you're building like a cake and you're like fingering the batter. You're like, oh, it's delicious. It's like, well, I guess it's good for you to know that, but that's not where it's supposed to be at yet. So
that's such a sick metaphor.
Thanks. I was going to ask, this is a tangential. How do you guys deal with the amount of CO2 you consume during this podcast? Because I feel like I'm going to have to mute and unmute so many times of just like, I'm going to burp.
I don't know if you've noticed, I've probably done it like 10 times. I just I do like the fist over the mouth and I lean away from the microphone. Because you two both have the...
Yeah, but it's like, it's going to happen mid...
Bro, I feel it's a great question. No one's ever asked that before in close to 400-ish episodes. I think it's completely fine. I feel like if everyone knows we're drinking a beer and lots of it, and everything we're drinking is carbonated, and it's inevitable, and I think it's okay.
Yeah.
I want you to feel comfortable. I want you to be you, and just let it rip.
I'm just excited to do it.
I basically like
From
subconsciously without even noticing, like every so often I'll just kind of like my cheeks will just billow out a bit, and it'll just kind of quietly escape. but like he says, if a burp happens to slip out, it's not a big deal.
No, I do that thing as well.
Well,
now
I
you
was
mention
wondering
it.
if you guys.
Go.
I was just gonna say, I wonder if you guys are like in that Sean Evans hot one territory. You're like, I don't even taste it anymore. You're just like, you power through it after 400 episodes.
I don't think anyone can really get past the CO2. Do you know what? It's funny you mention that, because I always find when I see like brewers who are older than me and been doing it forever, and we're drinking, and then they go and burp, I'm like, oh, I think it was because we had John Romano from Nickelbrook. He must be in his 60s and he's been around forever. And seeing him burp, I'm like, oh, I don't know why I thought of that exact same thing when he was burp. I was like, guess this never goes away no matter how much beer you drink. And I had that ridiculous thought, and I thought I was just being silly and didn't remember it. So that's hilarious. I like to do the burp where it sort of like stays in your mouth and then it just comes through the nose. And then like if you're drinking an IPA, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like a hop dragon type of thing. You had smoke in there, and now this is like a nice malty dragon.
You guys should pick for every season of the podcast, like one beer that you send everyone who you interview, and it's like your version of the bomb.
It's how many bars of CO2 can you put into it?
Without the can.
Huff a soda stream cartridge or something.
So just have it here, just keep adding it in.
Oh my god.
Oh, that's fucking amazing. That's actually a really fun idea. I guess there's probably going to be an answer to that, like how much you can put in before the can explodes.
Yeah.
The old
or whatever, you just put it in the soda stream bottle and then you go.
Yeah, just keep it cruising. I've always thought about doing that. If I had like a big beer that I kind of like couldn't finish, and you put it, plug it up and throw it in the fridge for next time. And I was like, if it didn't, hold too well.
Hey,
Dad actually
I haven't tried it yet. I wanted to try it.
My dad actually sent me this. I'll send you guys the link after. It's this growler. I guess you can take it to breweries to fill up growlers, and it comes in different sizes. So there's like a 3-gallon one, a 5, and there might have been a 10-gallon one as well. But it's got it comes with its own CO2 cartridge, so you can get it filled up at a brewery, which obviously doesn't help if you open a can. You got to go to the actual place or a tap where they're filling it up.
Mm-hmm.
But it has a tap on it that you can dispense, and it keeps the pressure and displaces it with CO2, so that you can open a growler and keep it for like up to 2 weeks or something like that.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's genius.
Not that any of us would need 2 weeks to finish that amount of beer, but
no, but still. It's that's hilarious. A lot of people have said that they stopped doing growlers because they're concerned about people mistreating the beers and stuff. Like, you put it in the back of your fridge, you forget about it, then you try it, and it's this big branded growler, and you open it, and you're like, oh, this is shit. Like, well, yeah, because you left it for 2 weeks, dickhead. Like, fuck you thought it was gonna happen.
How about you guys? I'm curious. Like, you drink pilsners. Like, what are some of the ones that come to mind for you? Like, what do you like in them? Like, because that's what we're drinking now. So I'm just curious. You're talking about everyone their own style.
Yeah, they are very good. Nate, go for it.
So some of the ones closest to me that that are standbys for me, like Tooth and Nail is a 5-minute drive down the road from me. So Vim and Vigor is of course a mainstay in my fridge. Like, definitely a model of one of the best in the province, no question. Another one that I go to fairly frequently, one of mine and Craig's favorite breweries of all time is Cinquième Baron in over on the Gatineau side. They make some absolutely fantastic lagers. Like their Two Tails Pils is one of their first beers, which is still on their menu, is one of our faves, and and they make a fantastic Helles, and one of the ones that they've actually named their flagship, Citadin, is their Czech Pils, and they're all they're all fantastic. As far as as far as styles go, one of like for me, personal faves, and I know like, and this is the case with like with Craig as well. We talk about this all the time, with fall being our favorite like our favorite time of year
Preach, brother,
for beer styles. Märzen and Festbier.
Let's go.
Like I feel like I can confidently speak for him. Are one of our absolute favorites, and it seems like a lot more people have been making Festbier this year, and I'm so amped for it. And I got really, really excited when you guys put the sticks and stones in this like in the lineup for tonight. So I'm really amped for those.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No,
Still can't
yeah.
seriously when anyone says those names of the beers. A lot of the I'm sure as we have a couple more beers, we'll start getting into how we come up with the names for them.
Yes.
I don't think we've had enough liquid for that yet, but I remember very distinctly on our Oktoberfest, because we were only serving sticks and stones, and then we did our Dunkel and then half as well. So those are the only 4 beers we had on. And we had this idea where we were just like, wow, we have a list of names for beers, and Sticks and Stones was on there, and it would be like, these are 2 beers that we're releasing at the same time that are kind of connected, and we were just like, wouldn't it be funny if we just posted a picture that was Sticks and Stones? Because it's just like a saying that at least I say all the time. It's like someone says something that doesn't bother you, it's like, Sticks and Stones. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever. And then the first person, like it was the first customer that came up, and they're like, can I get a liter of Sticks? And I looked at them, and I was like, which one's that? I didn't even remember which one we named.
That's awesome.
It took a solid 20 minutes into Oktoberfest for us, because we were working behind the bar. Like when you do like the fingers up to figure out what like left is. I was just like,
oh, is that how you do? Oh, yo.
Yeah. And then also the problem is, like, behind our bar on our LUKRs, we'll put little tape with something behind it. So it was like, we were just like, okay, we'll put S on this one. Oh, wait, and then S on, wait, ST on, and then we're like, oh, ST on that one. So it's just like, at a certain point, like, I don't know, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
and then we were like, we'll put STI on one, and then we're like, oh wait, okay, no, not that one. And then we were just like, oh yeah, the styles, that'll work too.
Yeah, we just did MF Surge, a bunch of MFs the whole day.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
Hey, hang on, Craig. Did you just figure out now at the age of 42 that like you hold up the hand to get the L for the left?
Yes, but do you know why? I have a scar on my right hand here that I got when I was like 6. And that's how I check. I didn't know. No one ever told us the L thing. I'm like, that is fucking genius. But I got this. I'm like, oh, I know what right is because I have a scar there. But no one ever. It wasn't like, it just wasn't. Maybe it's not an Aussie thing. Maybe it's a North American thing.
Maybe.
Either way.
It's down there, right?
But everything is opposite, you know.
Yeah,
the toilet, the water goes the opposite way. It's a strange place, boys. Strange place.
So there you got to be like, okay, so which one's left and right? Which one makes the L?
Imagine, Jesus Christ. Okay, now I think we should crack another one because my glass been empty.
Yeah, let's do it.
Whose turn? Do you want to? One of you guys go. Maybe we can just switch.
Matthew.
What are you feeling, Matthew? What are you feeling?
Know, like we were talking Sticks and Stones, so now I kind of want to go to the Festbier before we get into like the Märzen, which is like, you know, a little bit more, but then it's higher. Let's just go. Let's go with Stones. Unless Adam, you think that's a terrible idea?
No, it's your idea, and we just have to follow you blindly.
Blindly.
That was a really polite way of saying that's a terrible idea.
It was great.
I'm gonna wash my glass quickly.
No worries. So we're doing Stones then. It was the.
That's what he said.
Okay.
That's the Festbier.
Oh, the Festbier. Okay. Hells yeah. And the Märzen is it's lower ABV. Who cares, man? Let's switch around today. This is fun. So we're doing Stones, yeah?
Yeah, Stones.
Beautiful.
Again, I looked at it because I was like, which one was this again?
Yeah. I think because from that story, and then I think in the end I got confused. Very cool. Obviously, particularly all of this talk, it kind of feels like it's the right move, being that we were just talking about it and Nate was just saying that it's our fave. Yeah, it's something that I feel like, you're 100% right, Nate. Like, I feel like this year, there were Festbiers out the arse, and I got every single one I could get my hands on, and I've loved it so much, and now I'm kind of just annoyed that these aren't year-round. I think I would probably close to exclusively drink these if they were year round.
Yeah.
They're that damn good.
And we also went
that
through a
in you.
long stretch, like over the last couple of months of getting Festbiers on most of the podcasts that we were doing, which was a lovely pattern.
Oh, it was glorious. Oh, look at that. Went a little
Oh,
hard.
look at the foam on that.
That is just glorious. I was wondering, okay, so this is like a dumbass question, but it's probably you guys are the best people to answer it. So we did this little joke thing before we left Montreal, like last year. We were making these like sort of videos that were like how not to pour a beer, part 1 through like 5 or 6 or whatever. And one of the ones was just like what I did. I bought like a can of fucking Labatt 50 or something because I could do it, pour the beer badly, and then pour it back in, then redo it with something else, just for the sake of doing it. So I did one where you take the beer and just basically pour it upside down, because it creates some absurd amount of head, and people got so mad at it. But there were like on TikTok, I got nearly 100,000 views, and I wonder. People have said, in the meantime, they've been like, oh, well, that's how I pour my beer if I want a big ass head kind of like this. And I've started doing it particularly like in like the dimpled mugs with the short cans. You can basically turn that thing upside down and it creates like the perfect head, and it won't overflow because it's just enough space. So is there, from your perspective, as this is what you guys focus on, is there like this is how you pour it from a can? Or is it sort of not that straightforward?
From a can?
From a can, yeah.
I don't know if it's like specific. Like I pour. Okay, well, I guess like you guys have probably heard of like the slow pour, which is actually like I guess you like, do it from the can as well. I think it's the best when it can be done from the tap. To be honest, like. The big thing with pouring that aggressively, at least for me, and part of this is being able to have the privilege of drinking from a mug poured from a LUKR, is when you pour that aggressively, you introduce like a lot of oxygen, I think. So I think it's kind of like what you want to achieve is like, obviously you want foam, like Matt and I are pro foam, heavily foam. And so you just want to pour, I think, like aggressively enough where you can generate some of that foam, I would say, off the top. So like at the beginning of your pour, and then pour more gently, which is kind of the concept of slow pouring, where you get as like gentle of a pour so you're not like losing as much carbonation or introducing as much oxygen later on in the pour, if that makes sense. So I pour a bit aggressively off the top, get a bit of a head, and then just pour a bit more gently, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of the same concept as the LUKR, right? Like it's called the Hledinka pour, which is like called the perfect pour, and that's where you pour foam first, and then you submerge the nozzle underneath and tap fully to pour fully carbonated bright beer from underneath the foam, so you're not introducing oxygen, you're not losing carbonation, and it's just kind of you're drinking the beer as it was meant to be drunk.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to do with a can. Like there's no perfect way to do it. But I mean, usually for us, like we package our lagers at the carbonation level that we would want you to hopefully enjoy that. And then while still wanting to have you have that foam there, right? So it's like you want to try and minimize all that stuff, like introducing oxygen, losing carbonation, but still have that like nice head that makes the beer look appetizing, that helps boost the aroma, that helps protect it from oxygen getting in as you drink it, all of the above.
Gotcha. That makes sense. No, totally. Particularly if you're trying to like, it's like the closest thing to mimicking that like LUKR pour.
Yes.
Which is fun. I've heard of that one too, where I was learning about it a little bit with like the mliko pours and stuff. Do you guys do them, by the way?
Yeah. Do. Yeah.
Can you tell us about that, like about the thinking behind that, and and kind of how that works, as opposed to a traditional LUKR pour like you were just describing?
So Matt, you whatever. You
no,
want.
I was gonna say like there's obviously I'd let Adam talk about sort of like the tradition and the reason behind it, but like in terms of why we put it on the menu, funnily enough, we were kind of like, as we were testing out the LUKRs before we opened, Adam was like walking us through like the pours, how we want to pour, whatever. and we did a mliko. He was explaining what it was, and I think I was just like, oh, like that's great. We should put that on the menu. It's like, oh yeah, let's put it on the menu. Someone was like, we should put it on the menu, and we sell a lot of them. Like we actually genuinely do. It's kind of like the mliko is the beer equivalent to like the sizzling fajitas, where like when people hear it, they're like, oh, I want fajitas. Like when people see a full head of foam, they're just like, at the very least, they're like, what is that?
Right.
Yeah. And then they'll order it, and we do have it on the menu at the bottom. And I love, like, it's my favorite questions people ask, like, do people actually order this? It's like, yeah, that's why we put it on the menu. Like, and I love that people want to order it. Like, it's, and then seeing their sort of skepticism turn into like, oh, this is actually like good, which also goes back to like, yeah, we put it on the menu because it's good. And, like, we won't put something bad on if it was bad. But like, in terms of the history, I'll let Adam kind of talk about that.
Yeah,
like,
you guys
our own
You want the whole
personal
spiel?
evolution.
I'm down. I actually want one right now.
Yeah. I want to hear it. I'm really curious.
Okay, so there are actually a bunch of different pours when you go to the Czech Republic, and I feel kind of like a fraud saying it because I actually haven't been there, but I've done a lot of research, and when we were buying the LUKR Tower, chatting with them, reading a lot online, watching like instructional videos from Pilsner Urquell, all these places how to pour from the LUKR. And there's really three main ones. There's the Ledinka, which is the perfect pour, which is the one I was just telling you about. There's a Schnitt, which is where it's kind of like a half pour. So it's like a half liter. It's like a bunch of, if you were up to here, say it was like, I'm trying like, it'd be like from foam from there to there, and then that much there at the bottom. And then there's the mliko, which translates to milk in Czech. And the mliko is kind of like, I guess you could, like, it's two scenarios. One kind of like an end of night kind of beer, or if you're in for a quick one. It's meant to be drunk really fast, or at the end of your night, kind of like a dessert. So if you think of a LUKR, like, a really good way I heard it put for the LUKR faucet was like a normal, like what we would consider North American tap. You would think of it like a light switch, on off, right? A LUKR is like a light switch with a dimmer on it. If you open that handle, the side pole, partially, it's a ball valve inside, and then in the nozzle there's like a screen. So when the beer or the foam comes through the screen, it creates these nucleation points. So all the foam, which is like 90%, 85-90% beer, it's mostly beer, is like this very wet, dense, creamy foam. And it makes it all the bubbles uniform in size. It's just like a really unique texture. So when you open up the handle partially, it creates foam through the partial opening of the ball valve, and you just pour foam. If you open it all the way, it pours fully carbonated, bright beer as intended, blah, 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 the whole thing I said before. So the foam, like I was saying, like if you poured out a half liter of the mliko, like the foam, it settles out to probably like 250 milliliters of beer. Like it is a lot of beer.
Right.
It's meant to be drunk quick. When all that beer is kind of within the bubbles and it's like there, it's almost like a meringue, almost like a whipped egg white. If you have like an amaretto, whiskey sour, something like that, it's that texture. It's also more sweet than like the foam you would get on a North American tap. That's a bit more like rocky, like a bit more bitter and like acrid. It's like when you guys come by the brewery, hopefully one day soon, we'll pour you one. You'll see it for yourself. But it really is like a dessert, like especially with more malt forward. That's why it works really well with Czech beers, or like we do it a lot. Like the Helles is nice, but with our Dortmunder or something like that, it works really well because it's like a dessert. It's a really unique texture. People try to chug it as well, it's surprisingly hard because there is still air in there. So it's like I've only even done it a few times, and it's like very tough to get through. But it's like an experience. It's like a desserty, sweet. It's like, and people, like Matt was saying, like they look at it, they're like, firstly, who are these idiots trying to give people a mug of foam? Do they know how to pour a beer? And then you give them that spiel in some way or another, and they're like, okay, I'll try one. Or we give them one like after sometimes just to be like, hey, like give it a try. And you see that kind of like light switch go in their head, and they're like, oh, they're they're just a little bit full of shit. They're not totally full of shit. Like we kind of get
like when we opened the brewery, we had it on the menu, and we did a soft opening for like our friends and family. And my best friend in the world, the best man at my wedding, came in, and he saw that. And if you met him, you know he just like he's like a magnet, like a moth to a flame to that kind of stuff. He's just like, oh, I'm getting that. And he almost to this day has never drank a normal beer at our bar. Like he'll come in and only get Milikos.
That's so dope.
Yeah.
And part of it I guarantee is a bit, but he genuinely enjoys it. Like he's like, this is a very cool way to drink beer. And I think that's the coolest part of it.
Yeah.
And when people like, there's the light switch moment of like, oh, these guys know what they're talking about. It's also like seeing people realize like, oh, you can drink. There's different ways to drink beer. Is kind of like a bananas moment for some people. Like you're just like, oh, this thing I've been doing my whole life. There's another way to do this. Like it's not just the way that I've thought about it my entire life, and like that's a really cool moment as well to see people be like, oh, you can just drink beer a different way. Like that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
By the way, the funniest part about that story that Matt forgot to mention about our friend is that not only does he only drink beers that are Mlikos, but he makes us call him the milkman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, really, really important part of the story. Not be over.
Oh my god.
That is the fucking best.
Oh,
Milkman.
that's hilarious.
Yo, should we call that the is that the episode name, boys?
Yeah.
Oh, I think so.
The
I'm
milkman.
gonna top that.
The milkman.
Nate, can you write that down, sir? I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm on it. Oh my
Oh,
god.
fucking hell! Oh god,
Yeah.
maybe
It's great. It's great.
he makes you call him the milkman, though. He said, "Go, boy, say it. Say my name."
Yeah, say my name. Yeah,
By the way, he also makes
Very
everyone
well
at the bar
played.
call him the milkman. It's not just us, and it's very weird to watch our GM Alan
He'd be like,
indulge in that.
"Hey, the milkman's here, guys."
Yeah. I think like 6 months in,
Oh my god!
Alan, who we reference a lot, Alan is
Big ups,
one of
Alan.
our favorite people in the entire world.
Oh my god, I'm gonna
I
cry.
think like looked at us and just like, wait, what's his name? And I was like, oh yeah.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
So no one even knows his name. He's just the milkman.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
Well,
We
no,
do, but there's like a decent amount of people who work for us who are like, I don't know who that guy is, but he comes in a lot.
Oh my god, that is still my stomach's still hurting from that. That's fucking amazing.
No, that's fantastic.
I love that so much. And Malikos I've had them a couple times, and I think they're the funnest thing ever. I do recall them being harder than imagined to chug.
Yeah.
And they do create like what you sort of don't realize, like how much beer it does actually create. Because sometimes I look at the price of them, and like it's less than a full pint or whatever. But it's like, oh, this is kind of pricey for a bunch of foam. But then when you just put it like that, when it's like 250 ml of beer in the end, it makes complete sense.
But it's also not just that it's 250 ml of beer. It's I think that it's a different experience. So if you just look at the price of a Mliko, and this is for anybody going to any brewery that's serving these, don't think of it as like beer to dollar ratio. Think of it as like an experience, because a Mliko is a different thing. Like in my opinion, it is a fully different thing. It is a different way to experience a product. So it'd just be like, oh well, I'm only it's like I personally for me, this is not everybody. I don't care if it's 1 milliliter of beer. It's a different thing. Like I'm paying for a thing. I'm paying for an experience. I'm paying for I guess a liquid item that I'm going to enjoy, and I'm going to enjoy it. So I don't really like the concept of being like, oh, there's a lot of beer in it. Like to me, it doesn't really matter, because it's like it's its own thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes complete sense. It's,
I agree with that.
And because it's so new, though, I think that's what you guys were both saying. It's the experience, and it's also unfamiliar. When I was introduced, it was in Silo, a brewery in Montreal, and they actually did a thing where they had like a Mliko festival, and they just do it on like once where they just have all of their beers, like, and they have food, German food and all that stuff, to kind of like.
Wait, so were all the beers just served in Mliko format?
I think it was not all of them served that way, but they were highly encouraged, and sort of it was the look on. I don't know if I want to say this. He was just like, he goes, we do Malikos all the time, but you have a Mliko festival and people just come out, and it's just like marketing. But
Straight up,
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
they're coming out because they like it, right?
and I happened to go, and I think it was the day I went on my birthday, like last year. And because I hadn't been out that way, because it was a little further away, and I didn't have a car in Montreal, so it was harder to get places. And when I was super impressed. So he sat down. I had him on the pod a few times. I think I was telling you about him the other day, Adam. JP, he's a great dude, and he was explaining it all to me. I think he told me about all those different pours, and like the one where you have like the a Pils or whatever bottom, and then you have the foam from like a dark beer, like Tomavi or something like that on the top.
Resine or whatever.
Yeah, that stuff, and then the mliko, and he was like gave us one to try. I was like, oh, this is my shit. So whenever basically, if I'm able to go somewhere that has a LUKR, that would be my priority. If visiting somewhere, I think it's the coolest thing in the world. I know when you guys were saying you have a LUKR tower, it's just money. It's just the best because of that. And I think coming back, Matt, to what you were saying about the experience, though, if you're going to go to a brewery, and these days, in this economy, as we've been saying a lot here, like it's harder for people to justify going out. People are kind of struggling in a lot of different ways. So if you are going to go out, it would be optimal to have an experience when you do go out. And, something like having a beer served in a way that you haven't had before is memorable. And it sort of makes it like, if you leave that experience feeling like, not only was the beer fire, but that was just money well spent because I had a good time. And now everyone calls me the milkman. It's just...
Yeah.
Oh, God, that's so good. I can't get it.
Very far, you know that?
He's just everywhere. Imagine if you got...
Say what you're gonna say.
Imagine just rocking up to different. You guys going on the town with him, and everywhere you go, it was like, "Hey, milkman!" And you're just like, "Is this fucking great?"
I thought you were gonna say just on each tap on the LUKR tower, we just have different, 1% skin, 2%
oat milk, soy, yeah.
Yes.
Oh man! So fellas, we're like a good way through the.
We didn't talk about the beer,
and we barely even talked about it. So do you want to tell
Let's
us
do
about
that.
this Festbier?
Yeah, please. It's fucking great.
Yeah, so this is the Festbier. We brewed this. I was telling you a bit, which we'll get into a bit more in detail, I guess, when we drink it. The sticks, the stones was more of like the classic Festbier. I guess it would be served like again. I haven't been yet. Hopefully one day to Oktoberfest in Munich, but this is more what you get served there, right? So it's essentially what it is, like to me, is an amped up Helles, right? Like it's a Helles is say that 4.7 to 4.9, like high 4s percentage usually, and this is a bit higher. Ours we brewed to have a bit more bitterness as well, just because I find with the right amount of bitterness, it can actually lend to a bit more drinkability in terms of like the perception of dryness a bit. And yeah, I mean, we brewed ours pretty traditionally, like we did the decoction mash on this one, just a single, not a double. And yeah, just like a long, like we essentially approached it as we would our Helles, a bit more oomph to it, and then let it sit for a while, and that's kind of it. Yeah.
The milkman. You guys are thinking about it. I'm sorry.
When he came to Oktoberfest, you have to believe that he went straight for a liter of
mliko.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
A liter of milk.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Adam. For I just can't stop thinking. I don't know why. It's a.
I'll bring it up whenever you. If you ever have any lulls in this podcast, just say
the milkman. I kind of wish that was my nickname now. Fuck.
Like, damn, he beat you to it.
Yeah. What if it's
all of these years on Team Lactose, I never even thought of
never even came up. What about the oat milk man?
Yeah.
The milk alternative. Nut milk, man. I don't know. We'll think about it. We'll workshop it.
By the end of this episode, we'll find you a dairy-related
thing. Please, that would be that would mean the world. It truly would. Yeah. I'm so sorry for interrupting. I was listening and just kept thinking in my head, just milkman. I could feel my face moving towards a laugh, and I couldn't hold it back.
But Nathan, you were talking about, or both of you were talking about, like the amount of breweries that were putting out like Festbiers and Märzens this year, which we noticed as well. Like when we were a little late to open our brewery last year, and we were super bummed not to be able to participate in Oktoberfest. I mean, I guess we could have, but Adam was right to point out, being like, doing it improperly, I think was the wrong way to do it, and he was 100% right. And so for this year to be able to do it like this, our entire year was planned around this, like the brewing schedule was planned around this, and it was cool. We knew we were doing the Märzen, we wanted to do the traditional one, and then I just remember Adam kind of coming in being like, I'm throwing in another Festbier as well. I was like, okay, all right, so we're putting 25% of our tanks towards one day, but it was so cool to have them side by side and to be able to show people like the different styles of Festbier. and to have both of them, I think, was really unique, and to have all these other breweries in the province kind of be releasing styles like this at the same time was also like really cool, and I think a little bit like fortuitous and serendipitous, but like it was a cool experience to have the two different styles of beer at the same time to kind of like show where Oktoberfest came from and where it is right now, and then it was also fun to like just have them alone on the LUKRs for Oktoberfest, which is still like to this day like probably the most fun day we've had probably doing this job, was to get to do that. And these are two very cool beers, and I think they mean a lot to us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was like Matt was saying, we did put out a Festbier last year that was more.
Oh yeah.
We'll talk about the Märzen when we drink this one. The one we put out last year we called like a belated Festbier, because again we opened too late for it to be ready for Oktoberfest, and then by the time we put it out, I did a double batch for us, which is a lot of beer for us. Again, other breweries not so much, but for us it was. And it was very traditional and whatever, and it just like it sold eventually, but it just like didn't. It made me realize that one, never doing a double of one of these beers ever, unless like things get to a certain point. But two, like it's a very in the moment beer. Like people, Craig, I was telling you, like Oktoberfest was very rewarding for a lot of things. It was our third event that we have. Like Matt and I put a lot of thought into our events and a lot of like lead up, like whether it's like hype, like just like trying to get people excited, because we're excited because we put a lot of work into it, and we want them to have as much fun on the day as much as we had putting into it. Like we want it to be for them what it is like in our minds, I guess is what I'm saying. And we had like the first one we did like a Pilsner event in May. We had our anniversary party in August, and then like Matt was saying, essentially for 8 months we were planning this day, Oktoberfest. We're going to do it. The beers we were making, it was just naturally the event that we were asked about most. Like, are you doing Oktoberfest? Are you doing Oktoberfest? We were like, nah, we're not going to do it. And then I was like, okay. We were like, we're going to do it, and we're going to plan for it. We're going to do it properly. And the first one we didn't really sell. It sold, but it's like I think we put it out in November, and it finally sold a bit in like I think it was March or April.
Yeah,
like it was a long time. And sure, we had just opened and whatever. And so we had these beers that we did for Oktoberfest, and like we were like, okay, our anniversary was our best day business wise, like vibe wise, everything wise that we've ever had. And we were like, if Oktoberfest can even like equal this or be in the same realm, great. All in, like essentially, like we didn't quite, but we almost doubled what that was. And we sold through like, I think if we include the Hef and the Dunkel, like close to like 18 to 20 kegs of beer in a single day, which for us is like kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was wild.
I think it was also outside of like sort of like the I guess like financial or whatever success. Like I think it was a cool culmination of I think something that's kind of like de facto become our mission is a strong word, but something that we've kind of tapped into, which is sort of it's not necessarily like educating. I don't know what the right word for it is, but like it's something we've fallen back on that like Adam and I, or this is like we always kind of say like we don't want to be pretentious about beer. We don't want to put people off and like make it feel like this closed environment that you can't get into, or if you can't get into unless you like know about it. But like something that we found or like while we were doing this was like the more you tell people about what you're doing and why you do it a certain way and what makes something in our opinions good or what makes it like better, like any of these things, like the more people resonated with it. So Oktoberfest was, I think, this like culmination of all of that, of like a year of kind of starting to maybe don't want to use the word educate, but like maybe show people why we do things a certain way, like why we care about water, why we pour the beer a certain way, like why we use the ingredients that we do. And then for that many people to come out to kind of like experience what we had, mostly Adam and Joey, like put so much time into, like 5 months before was just like really cool experience to be like, wow, I think there's a growing market for people drinking these styles of beer, like you guys said, like Festbiers and Märzens, like are what you're into right now. Like that's fucking cool. Like that like this hyper specific brewing style is like what you're super into. Like the Märzen's my favorite beer we've ever made, and like it's also like, it's funnily enough my dad's favorite beer we've ever made, which like if you ever meet my dad, it's the funniest thing in the world that like that's his favorite beer.
IPA.
Yeah, like that's so he tried sticks, and he was just like, oh man, this is amazing. And like that for me, like all that in that day, I was like, oh, there's something here. Like there's something here, and I think there's something for like people to kind of like latch onto here. And you know, talking about the Mlikos and the LUKRs and all this stuff, I was like, oh, like people are ready for this, I think, to like start experiencing beer in this kind of way, and doing it in a way that isn't pretentious, because like Adam and I are super anti that, like not being like over the top about it, but just being like, hey, you know, we do this way because we like it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, like not to get too like, I know we're only 2 beers in, so I don't want to get too emotional right now.
Just wait, we will. Don't worry, we will.
Like, sorry. What did you say?
We're gonna be crying eventually. Trust me.
Oh yeah. We're gonna have tears. But it's like, you know, when you start a business and like you are pretty dead set on what you're doing and whatever, and like there's ups and downs, right? Like some days, like, you know, like I'll be honest, like some days the bathroom is like borderline empty, and you're like, okay, like what's going on here? Like we really, again, like I said, like we're never like satisfied with it. We always want to get better, but it's like I don't think what we're doing is bad. I think we're offering people like a good environment. I think we're offering people like a good experience when they come in from like a service perspective. Everyone's nice, everyone's knowledgeable. We're like welcoming but also passionate about telling people why we do what we do, right? And so sometimes you're just like, well, what are we doing wrong, right? And it's like maybe it's the natural progression of something or whatever. But then when you have a day like that, right, you're kind of just like, okay, like it's a good like just kind of like self kind of like, I don't know if affirmation is the right word, like a self, like a confidence boost, where you're like,
yeah,
okay, like I guess people wouldn't come out to this and be excited about this and stay. Like we were open for 13 hours that day and we were packed the whole time, and it's like people wouldn't be doing this if there was something overtly wrong, right? It's like it's kind of like a reinvigoration of like, okay, we just got to keep our heads down and like keep going, and like eventually we'll get there, right? Like just like try and keep doing what we're doing and convey our passion in a way that we think, like I was telling you, Craig, like in a way that like doesn't alienate people or make them feel silly or like unwelcome or dumb for not knowing something. Tell them why we do what we do and make them feel welcome. And if they don't want to know about it, like our default when we come in, and this is something Matt and I preach to, and Alan, who's been with us since day one, like embodies, is like the default when you come in is not like bombarding you with like knowledge or like being like pretentious, or like if you don't know something or maybe aren't looking for a lager, or you come in looking for a stout or an IPA, which is something that other breweries do great, but we don't really focus on. It's not like being like, well, why are you here? It's like, hey, listen, this is what we do. This is why we do it. This is why we're passionate about it. This is why we do it the way we do. We'd love for you to stay and have a beer. We'd love to try and like not convert you, but show you why you can also sit here and enjoy yourself as well. If not, that's great. Blood Brothers is right over there. They make great all of these styles. Burdock is right down the road. Like they make great all these styles. These are just the ones immediately in our area, right? Like there's so many other options. And like what I was telling like Craig the other day, but Matt Cee, and like a lot of these people who at the start came in asking those things or like wanting other styles or weren't necessarily into what we were offering have become our regulars, right? Like they've
Love that.
Converted over to the light side, right? The crispy side is as Craig.
Crispy side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good episode name, but doesn't beat the Milkman.
Yeah. No, we're the milkmen. That's what it is.
That's what it is. There's no change. I don't want to detract from what you're saying, but I think that's awesome that you're able to do that. And I feel like it's almost like the way that the approach that you guys have to beer being that it's like very traditional German Czech kind of stuff with the LUKRs and with the styles that you're brewing. It's in this sort of interesting zone where it's like completely what Nate and I would probably consider gateway as far as like if you drink any sort of lager, whether it's macro or Euro lagers or anything like that, then this is completely, there's going to be something for you that's just going to be much tastier and superior to any of the stuff that you're used to. Alternatively, there's the beer nerd side with the different pours and the mlikos and like the German food that matches it up, that like pairs perfectly, and just all the interesting stuff about the hops that you're using and the double decoction and the step mash and all this like cool shit. So it's like riding this really interesting line to appeal to beer nerds plus the general population who are just beer drinkers who are probably open to explore. I think it's great. I think it's really dope because there's like there's not many breweries that specialize in this type of stuff across, say, Ontario and Quebec, which is primarily what we sort of cover. And even the ones in the States is still, I can think of maybe a handful anyway that really do that. So it's like, it's dope. And like you said, you've got, if you're cool, you need an IPA, beautiful, no worries, you got some options. But, check this stuff out right here. Then they're like, well, I'm here. And you can teach them something. They can sit there and be like, oh, you seen this weird looking, side pull tap? All right, let me tell you about that. Like, because it's interesting. I've heard this stuff a bunch, but hearing you guys talk about it in detail tonight is just as interesting to me now. After, cause I it's so like different to everything that you normally sort of hear with beer that I just find it so I want to hear it more and more to really drill it in, to learn about it and understand it. It's been a challenge. I don't know about you, Nate, but for me, coming from sort of whatever haze and all the fun, milkshakes and all the ridiculous stuff, and really, really having a strong interest in this stuff. Like, that is the most fascinating thing to me, but it's so different. I feel like I need to hear it a bunch of times from different people to really sort of internalize it and truly understand it, and then grow the appreciation that's already there and stuff. So it's sick that you guys are doing that and are able to offer that. And I love hearing that the Oktoberfest slayed it. I feel like there's definitely something in the air about that this year, which is, I wonder, is that, and this is probably a question to all three of you guys, is this like maybe a signifier, the fact that we saw so many Festbiers and Märzens from different breweries across, say, just speaking in Ontario, than normal? I do not recall having this many beers of the style ever in any particular time. Even, I don't think I told you this, Adam, but recently we went to did a day trip to Buffalo and Rochester and Shake Shack, Trader Joe's type shit. And I never do a day trip. I always do a week. Did I tell you this, Adam? Did we talk about this?
You told me you went to Trader Joe's.
Okay, we'll talk about TJ's. Okay. So like every, which is the greatest place on earth, but every place was selling stuff in 4-packs. No, I did tell you this about the 4-pack issue. And I didn't know how much I could bring back because I always stay a weekend and I know how much, it's a lot more lenient when you stay 48 hours. And I found it really difficult to get singles. And the Trader Joe's was the only place that had singles. And they had like 10 different Oktoberfest beers or Fest beers from different breweries. And I grabbed basically one of everything. And I was more excited about that than anything else I could have brought back from the States. So I just feel like even there was definitely something along those lines. So it was like, I don't know, it was cool. I know we need to crack the next beer. So should we crack the next beer, then maybe answer that question?
I want to hear what you guys think about that, and now I just really want a Märzen to be turned on.
I know, honestly. I feel like it was my turn to choose.
This is my choice now. Oh, no, it's Cee's choice. No, it's Cee's choice.
Well, my choice is your choice, which is going to be sticks.
No, I'm not doing that. No, it's your choice.
No, I wanted to do sticks. We've been talking about the Märzen. There's no way we're not doing it.
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna...
You going to text your team there, Matt? Matt has a team?
The truest form of the better half that has ever existed.
Love to see it. All this talk about it has got me super psyched about it. But
and we got to mention this too. Like, how gorgeous are these labels? My goodness.
They are stunning, and I love that they're like put
especially
it together.
These two together. Yeah,
I love that the Regal red, black, gold. Do you know what I love as well? I noticed the seams of the can are kind of like an L shape. Like that level.
Look at that.
That's going to be a bitch to label on. Oh, they're both not there.
because you have to get them straight.
Yes.
Like if they were even off by
Are you
like a
talking
millimeter, like
The
that
labels.
would, that would drive me nuts.
We're just saying. I noticed it on the first beer, and I just didn't say anything yet. And we're putting these two side by side. The fact you got these like L-shaped connectors with, I've never, in all of the travels anywhere I've ever been, I've never seen that before. And then we're talking about the gorgeous labels with the red, black, and gold, and how they look so sick together. And then just the way that it's put together is so dope and so.
Well, the
unique.
reason you might not see them is because when you try to feed them through a through a canning line, they tend to get destroyed, which is something we learned when we made them, and we love them, but they are tedious. They are tedious to deal with, I'll say the least. And Adam is the one who's always. Their packaging, I think, can speak to how much we love them is a testament to how tricky they are to actually get on the can sometimes.
I guess if it's tougher, it makes it more valuable. They just look so sick. Do we want to talk about this beer first, or do we want to talk about why there are so many of these beers?
Whatever you guys.
You know what? Let's talk about the beer, because I feel like the last one we keep going on tangents, which I love. Like, I don't want to stop the tangents. That's what makes this conversation fun. Like, what would be, I guess, first tell us about the Märzen, and I would love to know, just for both myself and for folks who aren't as familiar, like, what is the main difference between a Festbier, which you said was like a ramped up Helles, and a Märzen, or how do you say it in the German way? Märzen.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I did hear, I was at the Canada Beer Cup, and when they announced it, they did say it like that, and I was like, all right, you pompous prick, fucking saying it in that way. But no, it was I hadn't actually heard that before, and I thought it was like, oh, that's what the little dots on top of the A mean. I just never learned German, so I have no idea about the pronunciation of German words.
Yeah, the only thing I knew how to say, the only German I knew was I could count as high as the amount of beers I ever ordered at once. So for me, it was 3. So eins wide dry, and then after that, it's nothing.
That's it. When we went to Germany like 20 years ago, my brother learned it in school. Like longer story, but I didn't learn it in school. We went to the same school, but I came halfway through, so I didn't learn German. So he knew it, and the funniest number is 5, which is like "foof." So we used to always go like just like when you say it like that. Oh, Nate, you got a head on that right there.
Nate,
oh yeah.
Oh, look at you, the poor god. Are you the milkman? It kind of feels like you might be, bro. Nathan,
I guess so.
Fuck, I want to be the milkman.
Follow this chat right now and send it to our buddy and be like, "There's a new milkman in town."
I already texted him saying we're talking about you on a podcast right now, and he has not responded.
Tell him when he does. Tell him there's a new milkman. Tell him there's new milkmen in town. Multiple milkmen.
That's right.
Yeah, and they deal in heavy cream.
Oh my god! Oh fucking Jesus Christ!
Oh boy!
Oh my god, we're gonna kill Craig on this one. Holy shit! Craig's gonna die.
Oh, I can't even. My god, dude, you gotta chill. This is too much to me today. I haven't laughed like this in a while. I feel like oh my god, I'm dying. What do they do with heavy cream?
Great.
I'm very partial to semen jokes, so like that's hitting me right here, right in the heartstrings. Oh my god! Give me a second. God. You guys keep talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Nate, I as you know, you self-proclaimed lover of the style. I'm genuinely interested in why you think, for any reason, particularly this year, that this style or the celebration of Oktoberfest. The celebration of Oktoberfest.
I love how genuine.
I'm not even high.
Oh my god, he's dying. He's dying. He's dying. He's absolutely lost it.
Yeah.
The glasses even fell off. The glasses even fell off. Holy shit.
Yeah.
I'm hot as
It'd be great chatting with you. That's good stuff.
Oh my god.
I can't believe we have 4 more beers after that.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, yeah.
This is like 2 beers in. I'm not drunk.
Keep it moving.
I'm not high.
Yeah, we gotta keep it
insane.
moving.
Like,
I'm sorry, guys. Keep talking. Ignore me.
Why do you think that? Because that is something that we kind of noticed in a like we knew from the start we're doing Oktoberfest. We know we're doing this. This is going to be a super important thing to us. And then all these other breweries started doing it, and not to be like, oh, look at us or whatever, but like we actually, you know, we've become friendly with a lot of other breweries, and you know, we kind of like.
Well, I don't want to because of us that they started.
No. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying specifically. I wonder why, because they were like, yeah, we've been talking about this, and then we finally decided to do it, or like our staff have been saying like we should do this or whatever. Like we were just chatting with them. It's not like a, hey, why are you doing this as well? Obviously, but I think it's interesting that you guys have mentioned like, oh, it seems like this year for whatever reason this is really popular. So I'm interested because it did like for ourselves be like, oh yeah, this is. It feels like there's more of these celebrations this year than ever. At least.
Like when I think, again, not to like name I'm naming them in a positive way. Like when I think Oktoberfest, like breweries that have done it that I've been to, like Godspeed, Tooth and Nail does one. I've never been to theirs, but they do it all the time. Like I know Leftfield does theirs pretty often.
Yeah. Yep.
But the other ones that like I don't remember. Did maybe Blood Brothers did one before? I don't know.
I think they've done what they've called Bloodtoberfest a few times before. Dominion City did one this year, which I can't recall if they've done one in the past. They released a Festbier this year, which I don't think they've released before. To come back to your question, Matt, I don't really have a theory as to what has brought so much enthusiasm for it out this year compared to previous years. I honestly don't have a theory. We've been wondering that question just as much. I don't know if it's just a matter of breweries that have been in the scene for a while and have never dabbled in it before have kind of just had a blast at other breweries that have done it in the past and it's kind of inspired them to get more into it themselves, or even breweries that have just done that have been known in the scene for doing good lagers and had enthusiasm for doing lagers, and this is just one that they haven't dabbled in, because I've definitely seen that before. There's definitely a handful of breweries in the province that make great lagers but don't always put out a Festbier or a Märzen, and maybe it's just a coincidence that they've decided that this is the year they wanted to get into it. I don't know. I don't have a theory.
I feel like we're always on the precipice, like in the industry, of this, like, oh, this is the year that lagers are going to be. Craig, we were talking about this on our coffee date as well. But it's like, but maybe that's like, is this something that's a sign of that, and maybe more coming to realization? Maybe that's it. I don't know. Or there's the potential that, like, in years past, like, I mean, like, let's be honest, like, as a brewery, you're hopefully passionate about what you do, but you're also a business that wants to keep doing business, right? And like, we told you how ours went, and I would assume for other breweries it's probably similar. Where this is that people are looking for an excuse to go out. They're like, people love events. That we've realized people love events,
right?
Especially put it forward the right way and like amp it up and like get them excited in the right way. And Oktoberfest, like the summer's coming to a close, or whatever. Maybe that's the reason. Like more breweries were like, this is something we should do to take advantage of from a business perspective as well as right. It could be all of those things, right?
I think it has to be. And I wonder if there's the year of the lager actually is really sort of picking up. I feel like I'm seeing more and more across the board from different breweries. And the fest, is very interesting because it sort of went from it feels like it went from 0 to 100 type of thing.
Yeah.
When just all of a sudden everyone is doing it, or it was a slow build, and then you look around, maybe you didn't notice it, and then you look around, you're like, Jesus, everyone's doing this, and then everyone's having Oktoberfest parties. I mean, it could even be one thing we always sort of, you notice with trends is like a pendulum, when, was the bitter IBU race of 2015, 2014 and before. Then when haze kicked in, it was always it's all bright tropical hops, murky beers and all that type of thing. and then it kind of like it might just be swinging back the other way, and this is potentially what it looks like. Is specifically, it's interesting to me that it seems to be manifesting in primarily Festbiers and Märzens and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and the food is great when you think about Oktoberfest with all the food. Sorry, Nate, the German food pairs perfectly with it, and like who doesn't want like bratwurst, the pretzels, and all these like big hearty kind of in that cold weather. Fall is like Nate said earlier, it's our favorite. It's my favorite time of year. Like the drip, like the cloves is probably the best. The food and the beer is the best. Obviously, pumpkin spice lattes with heavy cream are the best.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna be laughing at that all night. I'm really trying to be serious. I'm really doing my best. And it's like it seems like maybe that people seem to really like love fall. Like it's and people are embracing it. And one way that they embrace it in the beer world is by doing something like this because it feels like a special occasion. It feels like you've been celebrating all summer. Then you're like, there's Halloween, but then like, what is there for Canadians at least? Because Americans got their Thanksgiving in a few weeks. Like before Christmas, it's a little bit quiet. So Oktoberfest might be a little bit of an excuse to kind of celebrate fall and wear different clothes finally, and eat some heartier food that you probably avoided all summer. I
think not to be like cynical about it, but I think Adam does bring up a good point about like. Look, if you own or operate a brewery, Oktoberfest is free money. Like it really is.
Yeah.
The only thing, which this is actually going to get into my second point, which I think is interesting because it's like it truly is free money. Like you could do it no matter what. You could be like, we are just celebrating Oktoberfest, and it's kind of like the bastardized version of like celebrating St. Paddy's Day or whatever. You could just be like, just come drink beer. It's Oktoberfest. But what I think was interesting was like, not only were people doing it, but they're making a Festbier. Like they're taking the time to do it in a way that is as true to what it is as they're supposed to be. Did everyone throw their Märzen in for 4 or 5 months? I don't know, and I honestly don't care. But I think just the choice to release that style was really, really interesting this year, and I do think it's like a combination of all those things. That it's the lager renaissance, it's the just the sort of seeing the fact that like, oh, it's Oktoberfest and we're a brewery. Like that's kind of should try to figure it out. But I just found it interesting that this many breweries kind of like were doing it and celebrating it, which I just thought was great because I absolutely love this style and I love this beer, and I feel like this is the beer that's closest to like a child for me because I love it so much. So I want to know what you guys actually think about this one.
Oh, this is spectacular.
Yeah, because this one's wicked. I remember this one like the first time going back to that first conversation we were having where Adam bringing me something off tank. He brought me this at one point, and I was just like, this was sort of like an eyes popping out of the head, being like, holy shit, this is like, I've never really had something like this before. It has like blown me away in a way that I was like, oh, this is any day of the week. I could open this or pour this. And be like, oh yeah, I'm in. This
no question.
Yeah,
it really is. It really is fantastic. And just to like look at contrast. Even just color wise, if we look at the Festbier, compared to the Märzen is definitely a little more amber in color. Yeah. Not a lot, but if you look at them side by side, you can definitely see a bit of the contrast there. It's got like a slightly more robust malt bill, from what I can tell. It's not super sweet by any means, but it's got but it definitely has a little more of a caramel vibe to it, and this is money for me right here because this is one of those ones that this is a fall lager. This is what I think of as a fall lager. Like when on those cool evenings, this is what I want to be starting the night with. It just feels comforting.
No question. Yeah, man. It's exactly what 100% agreed. It's exactly what I want this time of year. Honestly, I genuinely would drink this year round if they were available. It's like it's interesting because it's lower ABV than the Festbier. This is 5, and the Festbier was 5.6. And this one's a little darker, and you would kind of almost expect the one with maybe a little bit of caramel malt in there. is
Yeah.
a little more
So-
hectic, but it's very different beers, and I think that's the interesting part, and that's what you guys were saying earlier. I think about the Oktoberfest and having both beers available.
Yeah, no, I can tell you a bit about your like kind of closed notes, but so traditionally, I was talking about our Märzen last year. That was like a traditional Märzen, like a lot of like Munich, Vienna malt, like that's pretty much it. That's what it's traditionally brewed with. For this one, what I found as well, I love traditional Märzen, and I would still consider this like traditional Märzen, but not quite.
Okay.
Traditional Märzen is like, again, that Munich Vienna malt kind of thing. But what I found was when we brewed it last year, not only was it like maybe a bit past the season for it, but I think maybe I just don't think it appealed to, maybe it was just because of snapshot in time, like people aren't fully there on that kind of darker lager yet. I don't know. But I wanted to kind of find something that was more middle ground between that Festbier and the traditional Märzen that's like more of like a dark, not quite Dunkel lager, but like brownish lager, if you want to call it that. So Weirmann, who we use almost all of their malt for our beers, they had released a malt called Iseria 1924, and essentially what it was a revival of the first barley certified for brewing in Germany. So in 1924, and it's this like beautiful. This is it. So we used 100% that malt in this. There's no caramel malt. There's no nothing. It's just that malt. And it's this beautiful. To me, I love the story behind it. I love how this revival. It's a great quality malt. But like when I drink this, like for me and Matt and I agree, it's like for me, it's like honey grams. Like it's graham cracker, like honey. Like that's what. And I thought like I'd never worked with it before, and I was like, let's just give it a try. And so we did it. And as we were drinking it over, that was the whole joke. Is like I'd try it like once a week, sometimes twice a week, and you do that for 5 months, and you're like, oh my god, how much of this tank is actually going to be left when we package it? But we were drinking it, and it just like came. It was like I was really excited for people to try it and hopefully see that it was a nice middle ground between, and see how they responded to that. That it wasn't going to be like this like totally. Not saying that people wouldn't drink it. Like plenty of breweries make traditional Märzen and they go crazy and they're amazing. But I was really interested to see how this kind of like more Märzen traditional, like in the way we brewed it. Like we did a double decoction mash on this. We tried to brew it for our tank space was close to like when it was brewed and let it sit for as long as it's normally sat for. Excited to see if like this more like kind of approachable version of it translated to people actually being interested a bit more, and it seemed that way. So like I think this is what we're going to do, and we're going to get it in March. It's kind of crazy to think that that's like 4 or 5 months away now. Almost be brewing that again. But that's kind of that's what we went for the I'm glad that you guys you dig it because
dude,
you put a lot of time and
Absolutely.
but it's also kind of crazy to think like we put this beer in April or whatever it was, beginning of May, and it's like that's the thing with the beers we make. It's like we're always trying to learn and always trying to improve our processes, these little like one step at a time. Okay, let's try it here, see how it translates, whatever. And you don't get to see like the fruits of your labor until like 2.5 months later. So like any beer that we've made change, like this one's like, oh yeah, like it's coming. Like I think we had our process, we're starting to get it down, whatever. But like we were still only like 8 months, 7 months, 8 months into brewing at that point, right? So it's like it's a very much a delayed kind of like tracking process to see how, for me personally, just looking at myself, like how we're coming along, right? And
this one, and it's also like it's the one beer that we make that you really can only make once a year, so you get like one shot at it a year to like improve.
To
I know,
tweak it.
Craig, and like Nate, judging by you as well. Like I know you, I would happily like. We have our Dunkel, so we'll get into that maybe next. Oh, I think it's my choice now.
It's your choice, whatever you want, brother.
We'll get into that next. Like I drink like I don't necessarily like I don't play by these like stylistic rule. Like this is what you drink at this time of year, especially with lagers. Like I don't vibe. But this is one that I think it literally just won't sell. And it kind of like we were talking about like the event, like the occasion of it, like I think it cheapens it if you just have it all the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
no, you're right. It's just
Yeah.
a shame because it's so damn good, and kind of to your point that like you don't get to tweak it. Like, you know, the thing with lagers is because it's such like all of your beers, period. I hadn't actually thought about that. Is there is such like a longer time when most beers, like a hazy IPA, is like 2-3 weeks tops.
Exactly.
Whereas like you got 3 months sometimes. Like
Yeah.
longer for a beer like this for you guys to know if it works. If it doesn't, you're like, oh well, fuck, wait 12 months to do it again. Like, you know.
I think, and I Adam, you can jump in on this, but I want you to talk about this because it's something that you've said that's resonated with me. I think one thing that Adam has always like preached that I 100% abide by is trying to make the beers that you make better rather than trying to make new beers all the time. And especially with what we do and the styles that we make, like if we were just obsessed with like putting out new styles or new brands or whatever, you would never be able to get good at what you're doing because of the time that you put in. Like if let's say best case scenario, let's say 8 weeks is the turnaround time on like any beer. We've got 8 tanks. Like that means that every tank you get in, best case scenario, what is that, like 5 turns on that tank a year to get a lager. And if all of those tanks, if you're just obsessed with making like different styles or whatever, or trying a new brand, like it could be a year before you go back to something that you've tried to get better at. And I think there's so much value, and like ever since Adam's been saying this, it's like it's kind of stuck in my brain of like, oh yeah, you gotta get, because we take so long with these beers, you have to keep trying to make them better, or else you'll never get back to them, or never get back to them in a way that's like important. And I think the cool thing with Märzen is that like every year we know, or some version of it, maybe I wouldn't say every year, I'm not gonna like hold us to it, but like every year it's like on March, it's like we got to make this beer and we got to try it really hard, and it's like you get the 1 year to do it. I just think is like really cool. There's something like interesting about it, where you're just like, okay, we've got this chance to make this beer, and I think that something that we try to do is like just a Pils or mild Lockout or any of these things that we are going to drink tonight are brands that we plan on making a lot of. At Adam, maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but it's plans that we plan on making this many times over because we care about this style and we want to make it better.
100%. And it's funny that you say that because Craig and Nate, you guys were talking about comparing, like, for example, the ABV of the Festbier to the Märzen. Here's a little window, not that either of you need insight on this because you know how it works, especially for a brewery of our size. They should have been the same ABV. But, like, when you're a brewery of our size and you're working with a new malt, you're, like, again, we were at a different point in our brewing evolution and knowledge with our own system. And then, like, sometimes things don't ferment out as much as you want them to. Sometimes, like, you're working with a new malt and you're like, oh, I got to tweak this in my mash to, like, make sure that this is more ferment. Like, all these different things pop up. So, like, I'm glad that you don't perceive this. Like, when I drink this, as much as I do love it, all I see is, like, how I'm excited to brew it again so we can make it better. But, like, it is too sweet for me. It's too low ABV. Not that it's, like, I don't like the you want to, like, those 4 little letters, BJCP, like, what, I don't know if we've had enough. I don't know if we've had enough beer. How is it that? Are we still recording or what's going on here?
Let her rip. Oh, we're recording and let her rip, brother. Let's go.
I just like stuff like that. It's all fine. Like, that's great that people are passionate about enough to judge that. But like, I was lucky enough to go to Munich and spend a decent amount of time there, and I had let's take a Dunkel. Okay. I had a bunch of them from a lot of breweries that I'd say have been doing it longer than the BJCP or whoever is judging have been around. One was black, one was brown. Who's wrong? They both tasted amazing, right? They were amazing. It changed my life. Like, why? You know what I mean? So, like, I don't necessarily die by the style, or I don't personally live and die by the stylistic stuff. But there are certain things where like you have intentions for a beer and you want it to be somewhere, and when it doesn't get there, you're like, oh, yeah, what did I do wrong? This is actually one of those times. Like I would have liked it to have matched up in terms of ABV, and like I would have liked it to ferment down a bit more, so it's even a bit more drinkable, right? Although I still was surprised actually on the day how many liters I took down of this. I was like, oh, it wasn't as bad as I thought, because I was like, oh, are people gonna get sick of this after like half a liter? I guess apparently not. But so all those things like behind the scenes, like one of the hardest things, and we're still so young and like so early in it, like consistency. That's why like you look at breweries like or beers like whether it's Bud Light or Miller High Life or whatever it is, and it's like, yeah, you can knock on those things all you want and like macro this, macro that, and like I think there's a time and a place for those. Like I've been at a ball game before and I love or I'm down in like the States or whatever, like a bottle of Miller High Life. Oh baby, let's go. It's the champagne of beers. But like one of those things that they have that like it's so hard to do is consistency. That is the hardest thing. And as you get bigger and bigger, you spend more and more money, and it's a bit easier to get. But you got to be like, it's impressive. Like the reason why they're so popular is not just because of the price and whatever, but it's because everyone knows exactly what you're going to expect every single time you open a can.
Yeah.
Every single time you're getting this experience, you're getting that, and it's not in doubt. And like that'd be awesome, right? Like for us, there's variation from every batch of everything we do. Even though we brew, like for example, our Helles, which we'll drink later, is like we've done like 5 batches of that now, and it's like every time it's like it's getting better and better and better. But it's different. It's just like we only have so much tools at our disposal to make it at our size. Like you can spend money, but there's only so much return on the investment for you when you're at like as small as we are, right?
Yeah.
So all those things. Yeah. Anyways, you just brought up the difference in ABV, and I was like, yeah, that's one of the things behind the scenes. I would never like advertise that on the Oktoberfest 2023 menu. It's like, hey, this is why we left. This is how we fucked up. Great. The milkman.
That's great.
I really try to not think about that. So don't. But yeah, Dunkel time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Dunkel time?
Let's do it.
Dunkel time.
Dunkel time.
Oh yeah, let's go. Oof, Nate. I haven't laughed this much in a while, boys. My like stomach is sore. My face is sore. It's
you look like you were gonna fall off your chair there.
I was pretty close. I was almost just gonna walk away. You know how you laugh so hard, you have to exit the situation.
Oh yeah.
Oh fuck my life! I'm still coming down off it. I keep having to mute because I keep having to clear my throat. I feel like I've like almost had like you have like spicy like hot sauce, and you got to keep clearing your shit. And I kind of feel like the laugh did that because I haven't laughed that hard for a while.
All this laughing.
Do you ever have that like thing when you laugh that hard and like and your face starts to feel kind of tingly?
Yeah. It's like hot. I feel like I was all red, and then the sides of your cheeks get sore.
All this laughing about this subject, Craig. Would you say you're lactose intolerant?
Do you know what's funny? I was seeing a naturopath earlier this year, and I did a blood test where they send it off to the state, so they check your food sensitivity. So Nate and I have a Twitter account called Team Lactose, and I found that my food sensitivity, I got like hazelnuts, beef, and fucking dairy milk and all different cheeses. And I was like, I always joked about that. I was like, I bet I'm fucking like some sort of thing like that. And here we are. So I kind of like, and the fact that you said, I don't know, the heavy cream just murdered me. I don't know. It's just like the milkman in and of itself, because I'm picturing this dude that I don't know what he looks like walking in and being just funny and just being like, hey.
I promise you, he's not what you look like.
We need to get you with a sketch artist and find out
I guarantee you he's not what you think he looks like, which is my favorite part about it.
Which is even better. I have no clue, but just the fact that he was funny enough.
It's like plus minus a billion of whatever you think.
Okay, I like that. Yeah. That's even better. It's just it's so fucking good. It's just so good. It's so good. I just love ridiculous jokes, and it's just so stupid, and I love it so much. I want to talk about this Dunkel, but I realized an hour and a half in, we didn't even talk about your fucking beer history or any of that shit that we normally do. I think we just have tangent on tangents. which is fine. There's no rules to any
The
of this, but-
conversation is just flowing that easily.
Yeah, exactly. And I expected as much. And,
I guess that's-
and
Well, first of all, like you guys might notice, Nate. I already pointed this out. Matt knows, obviously. Craig, I pointed it to you. Nate, did you notice anything interesting about the label?
oh yeah,
I want to see if he notices it because he might be filling in the blank.
look hard, Nate. Look hard.
I'll say it's in the lettering.
It's in the lettering, okay.
There's a secret milkman in there.
Yeah.
What's Milkman's real name, real quick?
His name is
If you-
Raz.
Is what?
Oh, okay, I got it.
His name is Raz. He's again,
Raz.
his name's Alex, but his name for as long as I've known him, which is now coming on almost 20 years, is Raz.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't picture him. Sorry, Nate. Go on.
Okay,
What
so it's so what we've got here is Munch-style Dunkel.
You got it.
Uncle. That's what it is.
Sometimes you just need a Munch-style Dunkel, you know?
Which honestly was
sometimes you need to proofread things.
one of those things that we kind of just like, oh, ha, ha,
Cheers,
ha,
legends.
Cheers. We like made a mistake. People fucking love the Munch. They think it's amazing. It's insane.
That would be another episode. If we didn't have
Love the
Milkman
Munch.
already, people love the Munch.
Yeah.
I will say,
Love the
so we
Munch.
ordered a bunch of labels because we knew we were going to make this beer again, and we brewed it last year. And so we ordered a bunch of labels, and then we obviously saw the mistake, and we called it out because we're on our Instagram, and we put it in, and like the reaction to it was hilarious. And since then, everyone has like brought up like, when's the Munch coming back? Like Munch style Dunkel. And we had enough labels left to label this year's batch, and originally we were like, oh, I mean, like, obviously we're going to order new labels and get it right. And then we were kind of just like, actually, I think we're not. I think we're not going to sign something we don't have to. And it's part of the charm. And you know what? I've just, Matt hasn't even heard this yet. I think we might just keep it called the Munch.
What do you mean I haven't heard this yet. I was going to actually pressure you to keep it this way.
I think it's awesome.
Keep the Munch style Dunkel.
It doesn't taste like Munich. It tastes like Munch.
Yeah, it's given Munch.
Which is very like,
It's giving
It's-
Munch.
it's very like in,
Munch music.
Munch music.
it's
Duck
very in line with the way that we've kind of like, sometimes this is like very classic fourth beer in kind of conversation, but
Let it run, brother. Let it run. I'm here for
sometimes
you.
it's insane that this is a company that we run. When you can do stuff like it's just like, oh yeah, maybe we'll just call it the Munch style Dunkel, which is just like a bananas thing. Like the amount of other like we've been
Well, to
lucky
be
enough.
fair, that wasn't the exact thought process. The thought process.
No. What I'm saying is that like
That's-
sometimes I just feel like we'll talk to other breweries or people, and I just sometimes come away being like, are we idiots? Because the amount of times we're just like, oh yeah, the Munch style Dunkel, we'll just keep that. And the way that we've been using social media that seems to work for us in some ways is like, when you look at it on the surface, it's like, okay, these guys might have lost their minds a while ago, which maybe we have, but I just think that this label really encapsulates this idea of just like, oh yeah, you know what, this is the way that we kind of do things, which is so weird to do that as a brewery that tries to focus so hard on getting things right, and like the minutia right, and like focusing on a style of beer that takes like precision and care. And then we're just like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if we just named it the Munch style Dunkel for the rest because we made a mistake?
Well, I think it's
There's something kind of charming about that.
Well, I think
fun.
it's like what we've been talking about, right? Like behind the scenes, caring a lot about what you're giving to people who are, you know, spending money on whether it's ordering your beers, buying your beers to go, coming in with beers, whatever, but also wanting to create a welcoming environment. And like, I think what we really where we really, both of us honed that kind of tone was when we started leaning into our process on social media specifically and explaining that to people, but trying to do it in a way that's very like self-deprecating and like, oh, but also, by the way, we're idiots, like Matt said. You know what I mean? Like it's doing both those things in like honestly a genuine way, because we genuinely think that about ourselves, that we are idiots. I mean, look what we decided
cool.
to do. You have to be. You know what I mean? Like,
maybe not an idiot, a little crazy, but not an idiot.
I'd say crazy is a better idea. Like if
You guys
you
are
were
too
to
smart.
like, firstly, if you were to like create a business plan for a business, and it was a brewery, people would be like, it seems a little risky. And then you're like, hold on, just literally hold my beer, because not only are we going to do this, we're going to do the most time-consuming and strenuous and hardest to like ace beer on top of that. And most people will be like, all right, okay. And you're like,
In a market where there's more restrictions to how you can sell the product than any other product, essentially.
yeah, in a province where they're like, oh, and by the way, the tax is
Like 16, whatever it is, like $1.20 a can or
which
something.
that's beer 6. I will go in on Ontario's beer tax laws.
Oh, we got 3 more to go, brother. I'm ready, and let's fucking
They
go.
are bananas.
Yeah, it's
is it
bonkers.
tell you about? I remember very distinctly. It's too late now because it's more awkward if I don't tell the story now.
No, you have to tell it.
I remember when the lady from the agency came. They were actually very easy in the whole process. At least for Matt did a lot of the heavy lifting with that.
The AGCO were the best. Shout out to the AGCO.
Yeah.
They were great.
Yeah, they were great. Like, quick and everything they did. But, like, eventually, you submit a floor plan to them, and they came to check out the brewery and just make sure everything is where you said it was going to be. And this lady comes in the back. She's very nice, very quiet, like, and was just, like, doing, just there to do her job. And I took her. She's like, can I see the back? I was like, yeah. Go into the back. It wasn't set up or hooked up yet, but everything was in place, like all the brew house and the tanks and whatever. And she looks around, and I'm looking at her, I'm like, yeah, so this is where we make the meth. And she was just like, she looked up at me, and she was just like, you know who I work for? And I was like, yeah, I'd love a mulligan on that. Please, that joke. Please, a mulligan. She's like, she didn't say that. And we got the license, so it all worked out, I guess.
There we go. What's the lesson? Don't joke with the AGCO.
The lesson is, for me personally, don't ever open my mouth amongst people who have.
Just smile and nod.
Yeah, no, don't even
speak when spoken to.
Yeah.
That's a sick
It's like customs office.
I feel like if that was a TV show, like you would have heard an audible record scratch after that, before she says, "Do you know who I work for?"
Yeah, kind of like when I just told that joke to you.
The...
Like even you two.
Oh, you're crazy. This is your business.
That's the best part, because knowing Adam, he looked at her and was just like, that was funny, right? And she's like, not very much.
Not particularly.
Yeah.
I think it's like, I always treat it like the customs officers. When you're coming back over the border and you got too much beer, you just shut the fuck up and you speak when spoken to. And you just if you just deal with what you got to do. But I almost feel like it's more gangster that you actually did that and made a joke to somebody who had the essential last call decision to be like, yeah, you're going to get a license or you're not.
Yeah, well, I make that same joke when I'm crossing the border with beer as well.
You do that? Oh, you're crazy. Fuck, man. You got to chill the fuck out, because you don't want to pay.
There was one crazy story I had crossing the beer. It was crossing the border back into Canada with beer. It was coming back from Chicago, because I was bringing back there's a bunch of great lager breweries down there, and I was bringing back, it was way over the limit. It was I think the upper end of the limit is 45 liters until you're considered an importer. So I think I was at 42 or something.
Okay.
So I was like, I'm going to pay duties on this. I know. But I always I want to make their life easier. I want to make everyone's day quicker. So I have the exact volume, in liters. And I also know in the back of my head the amount of cans, but I always go with liters because they portray to you what your limit is in liters.
The volume is what they want to know.
Sorry?
I was saying, the volume is what they want to know.
Exactly. Or so I thought. So she was coming back, she's like, how much do you have? And I was like, 42 liters, whatever it was. And she looks up at me and she's like, what? What do you mean liters? Why are you saying liters? I've never heard that before. What about cans? And I was like,
really?
My response is to start conflict here, but I know you're just going to make my life miserable. But I was just like, hey, I was just trying to make your life easier because you guys literally say in liters. Anyways, she sent me inside, and it wasn't fun.
Yeah, when they send you inside, you got to avoid that.
They sent me
That's
inside.
bananas. The last two times I've crossed the border, I've answered in liters, and they've just waved me right on through. That's wild.
I think she was, or maybe it was a bad day. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
It can be. I think you got. Yeah, I always feel like you got to downplay it, but not by much. So say you got like 2K, like whatever the limit is. Say you got 3 cases and there's 2 of you. You're like, oh, we have a case and a half each.
Yeah.
Like whatever sounds less in the mind. And also the plug is, and I don't mind saying this publicly, hold the receipts in your hand for whatever you have. It's like, oh, what are you bringing back? Oh, I went to Trader Joe's and I got some snacks. It was $65.32. And then we had that. And they're like, all right, nerd. Okay, cool, whatever. Like, and they just want you to get the fuck out. Like, I even take my hat off and just like, all right, cool. Like, even when I'm coming over, take the sunglasses off if it's during the day, like all that stuff to try and like look as presentable as possible. When we usually have my girlfriend and my dog and stuff, and the dog's cute, and they usually don't even acknowledge the dog, but sometimes dogs diffuse situations. So it's always like a precarious kind of little thing, because you pay enough fucking tax, bro. Right now, that's a whole other conversation. Particularly you guys as a business.
Beer 6, we'll talk about tax.
Yeah, let's fucking do it. Let's just quickly talk about this beer, because about specifically what a Dunkel is, and I just want to get into almost 2 hours in. Let's talk about your beer history, boys. A Dunkel. So I guess first question, what is a Dunkel? I mean, this is easily the darkest beer we've had this evening. Kind of like a light brown, very, very, very clear. Excuse me. Lots of toffee. Like molasses maple type of vibe, a little bit oaky, nutty.
Kind of like dried fruit, like some like prunes almost, or like raisin kind of thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Munich Dunkel, Munch Dunkel is just like a Munich dark style. I feel like, again, now I actually don't know, because I'm going to speak, because when I was there October, November. So I don't know if some of the breweries offer Dunkel year round, but it is, to me, a lager that, even though it is greatly suited to like fall, winter, kind of like colder weather vibe, it's very cozy. Mm-hmm. I personally still drink this easily in the warmer months. Like it still gets me. It's still refreshing to me, even though it is a bit more warming. But yeah, it's typically a style that, like, I think that when you go over to breweries there, you kind of, depending on where you go, like, it's kind of like they make 3 standard beers. It's like Pilsner Helles, Dunkel, and then you have like one-offs. Sometimes they'll make a Hef and variations of that. Sometimes breweries like Schneider Weiss only make a Hef, or like different variations of Weissbier, right? But like Dunkel to me is like a beer that's like one of my favorite styles. I love the kind of, is dichotomy the right word, of how, again, like I was saying, yet it's still nicely, for the ones I like at least, dried out and drinkable. Like, it's not too thick. It's not too, like, there's not too much body. It's really interesting. I know I'm going on tangents here, but like a lot of, when talking to people over there in Germany, because I was just asking them like about making lager and like what we want to pursue and whatever, and naturally they go into like, I find they aren't normally pretentious and like think, but if you start asking them questions, or especially about like North America, then they can start getting pretentious about why they think our beer sucks. The commonality amongst all of them was like, all of your North American lagers, not all of them, the majority of them, they're like, you have way too much body, way too much. And it's really interesting if you go over there. I don't know if either of you have been over before, but like one of the most drinkable qualities about, let's say, a Helles is that it rides this perfect line between, it has structure and body, but also it's watery in the best way possible. I don't mean that as a detriment to the beer. It's fantastic, and it makes it so drinkable. I don't know how to, it's just perfect. And I think that Dunkel, when it's done right, which like the ones we strive to hopefully one day be able to emulate, is that it can do both those things. It's such a first beer. It makes you feel like you're drinking something, but it's also so drinkable. Does that make sense?
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
so.
It's I went I think I was telling you when we hung out, Adam. It was 20 years ago, 2004 was
Right.
when I went, and I didn't know jack about beer at the time. I was drinking beer, obviously, and drinking whatever was local, but not particularly craft or Bitburger. I think I said to you was what I would drink because they had we went at Christmas time. It was December when we were in Berlin, so it was Bitburger and the bratwurst at all these Christmas markets and all these cool ass pastries and shit. It was killer. I loved it, but I didn't I bet if I went now I'd lose my mind. But I see what you mean about the watery side. I mean, that's not a word I would particularly use to describe this by any means, because to me it's not a positive word. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
That it's supposed to be water-like in the sense it's thirst quenching, potentially. Is that what you mean? And not too I'm drinking a shake or something here, which
Why that word's should I tell them? I won't say names.
I think watery. I think watery is used sometimes. So you're right about
Can I just?
Yeah, go ahead.
More sip.
Actually, why don't you go ahead? Here's the other thing I wanted to ask, because we've talked about burps already. It's I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to tell you all before.
Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah.
If you need to go, there's four of us. We're good.
I'll let Adam tell this story because we've told this. We've talked about this.
I'm just trying to make the story. Whatever. It's
No,
not even that.
I want you to tell the story. I just genuinely have to go. But I think it's important in the context of what we were talking about. Is all I'll say.
We have obviously you guys both have the called Untapped.
Yes. Nate doesn't. I do. Nate.
Yeah, I used to. I dropped it a long time ago.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think it has a place, especially for a person you get to keep track of what you've had, and especially for some people like you guys who are drinking a lot of different beers, a lot of different places, often traveling. I get that aspect.
Yeah.
I think the type of beer drinker created is brutal. It's
oh yeah, it's heinous.
Yeah, but also as a business, I don't take too much weight because to be honest with you, I don't like anything either. So it's yeah, I agree with you guys. But there's certain ones and certain people where it's it feels like it's I feel almost bad because it's it feels like they don't want to enjoy beer. You know what I mean?
I know exactly, and I almost feel like I know who you're talking about, because as we've been talking this evening, I've been checking into the beers because I just saved me time later. And there's a certain individual who's been basically checked into every single beer that I've had here, and they didn't have many positive things to say. And I'm like, this person never has anything positive to say.
Right. And maybe when I say what we're gonna say, and by the way, a lot of people say it's not gonna change what we do. We're always going to get better ourselves and whatever. But there's certain things where you're just you're always to my point where maybe you're just looking for things that are bad and you don't want to, for whatever reason, have a good time or experience drinking beers. And there was a recent check on our Helles where it said, and the reason why watery was in my head, where it said it was a bad rating or whatever, and it said bland and watery. And I was like,
but that's the goal.
That's the point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not supposed to be a beer where you're I've thought about this for 6 hours. I mean, that's actually not fair because some of the beers I had in Munich I thought about for hours and hours. But it's not because that was the intent, right? It was just for me, I care about how they're made. We all do to a certain extent. It would resonate with us. But the goal is not that. The goal is for you to be able to do it all day and have a great time with your pals. Imagine this is a beer garden right now. We're all drinking Helles all day. That's what it's for. We're all chatting. We're not talking about beer. It's just something it's a supporting. It's a pillar for the day.
Social lubricant.
Exactly. And so that's why watery was in my head, because that happened a couple of days ago, and now it's been a thing. We were talking about I don't want to drug Jeff earlier, and we were talking about that one review, and he was like, yeah, it's the you know what I mean?
There's Untapped has a reputation. I was actually thinking about this earlier, particularly Nate when you mentioned Sankey and Baron. The Crispy Boys have a insane reputation on Untapped for being criminally underrated as far as the thing. So like Sankian went to the depth, like the reach, and they have a t-shirt that says in the back, it looks like a baseball jersey. It says Pilsner where the name would be, and then it says a 3.5 out of 5. Yeah. And because they're like, love Pilsner, amazing, 3.5. I'm like, but if it was a hazy IPA, you'd put 4.75 for the same fucking thing. And that's the problem, is that like people underrate this style. And we were talking to someone, Nate, on a pod recently, and someone was like, oh, I don't know if there's a Pilsner in the province that's rated over for on average. And I found one from Godspeed that was, but it didn't have like 10,000, it had like 500 check-ins, not like 10,000 check-ins. So it's like, the thing with Untapped is that it's primarily like pastry stout and probably like hazy IPA drinkers. So the people who do drink, they're like, not a fan of Pilsner, but this was pretty good, 2 stars. Like, and they'll just go and ruin the whole rating of something. So I feel like for you guys, Untapped has a significantly less value across the board. Whereas I know there's other breweries who live and die by Untapped, for better or worse. It's not great because they're trying to please these people who, like you said, and I think this is interesting, Adam, you say this. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say they're trying to please these people that don't want to be pleased. That's
it. Do you want to like beer? Like, why don't you want to like this? This is something that we talk about all the time. Like, Nate and I don't, if we don't talk about something, that says more volume than if we do. I would never go out of my way, and I know, Nate, you echo this as well, on our platform to shit on a small business just because who the fuck are we? Like, who is out? We are not the arbiter of all things god tier in beer. We don't fucking know anything. I'm not BJCP, whether I know we made fun of it before, but like, I don't know. I know what I like. I've drank a lot of beer and I've talked to many, many people who are much, much smarter than me in this realm. So I think I'm fortunate, and we are fortunate to have been able to do that. But I feel like I have no business trying to knock a small business down. I have a business. I have employees. Like, I'm very conscious of what people like yourselves have to go through to start a business. So I don't think there's any value in, if I don't like a beer, then I just won't talk about it. Really, is all it comes down to. And sometimes beers are objectively not great, and that's okay. And maybe that's the brewery fucked up and they probably shouldn't put it out or something. But typically, it's like if I don't like it, I'm like, it's not for me. I listen to a bunch of music on the top 40. I'm like, it's not for me. And I can say it's shit. I have another podcast where we talk about music. I'm arguing with my girlfriend's 25-year-old cousin, who's my co-host. And he likes all the new stuff and calls me and my brother old. And that we only like a lot. But I'm like, I think your stuff is pretty fucking whack, dude. Like, I don't know, like, but I feel like that's easier with music. But with beer and stuff, it's just, there's so many different things. I just don't think there's any value. If we, at the end of the day, if you want this local craft brewing scene to thrive, I don't see any value in shitting on. I think it's much better if people just, if you didn't like it, maybe don't talk about it. And if you have a flaw with it or an inherent issue, reach out by DM or email to the brewery and let them know personally. I don't think there's anything positive that can come of shitting on anybody. And it's silly.
I think that's a great way to go about it, to be honest. It's just like, I'm sure maybe like I'm sure maybe you get it. Like, I've looked at your, on Instagram, whatever, like all the stuff you post is very positive always, right? And it's like
intentionally,
and hearing you say that, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, it's like, it doesn't mean I've never had a bad beer. We've all had bad beers, whether it's, like, you know what I mean? It's just like, why?
The public won't know it though.
Yeah, but why exactly? Like, why bring someone who's working hard down? Like, there's what do you have to gain out of that?
I think.
Yeah, what purpose does that serve? I think the kind of shit talking that we're talking about from a few select personalities in the Ontario craft beer scene, and I'm sure there are these personalities in all subsets of the scene, but like, it's the ones who kind of have a bit of an attachment to this personality of like like they like the idea of being being the one who the scene hates for being critical. And they think there's this whole thing of like, yeah, like, you know, I'm the honest one in like in Ontario craft beer. Like, fuck off. Literally, no one likes that guy. My God.
I think I think that the problem with all criticism across all art forms, and not to like be like, oh, it's an art form, but
no, it is.
Point is,
it
is. It 100% is. But I think in all art forms, like my background before this was in film. That's what I thought I wanted to do my whole life. I still love it a lot. The thing I hate about criticism, and when I say all criticism in all art forms, is that so many people mistake I don't like this for this is not good. And I think that's the single worst trait of all critics, is that you may not like something. There's a lot of like it related to film or whatever. There's a lot of movies that like I don't particularly like, but I am like, that's objectively a good movie. Like, it's an objectively good film, or because, you know, I'm not an expert, but like I know enough about it where I'm like, okay, it was well done. Am I ever going to watch again? No, but I'm glad I did. It's not for me, whatever. But I wouldn't like shit on it and be like, oh, I didn't like that because whatever. It's like, that's not criticism. Saying you didn't like something is not criticism. Criticism is looking at something with like an unbiased lens and being like, okay, what were they going for? What were they trying? Where is something that's structurally wrong? Where is something that is like intentionality was wrong? And when people criticize beer, not even our beer, but any beer, I think it's so often just like, I didn't like this. It's like, I don't give a shit if you didn't like it. I give a shit if something was wrong with this beer. And there's so many beers that I've had where I go like, okay, not for me, but there's nothing wrong with it. It was fine. It did exactly what it was like trying to do. And that's totally fine. Now, if there's a beer that's like off flavoring, has diacetyl or it's oxidized or something, like, okay, that beer is bad. But those things in and of itself sometimes are a function of the processes where the beer was made. But sometimes, like, we've had cans that have oxidized on us. It's like sometimes the lid didn't seal perfectly, and it's like an oxidized beer. It's like, I don't know, like, it could happen. Like,
shit happens. Small batch, bro.
It happens. It can happen to anyone.
Exactly, and I just hate this idea of having a rating system, whether it's Untapped. I know we were talking about Untapped, but like this is my own like issue with like Google reviews and stuff like this, where someone just goes like, "Oh, I didn't like this, and therefore I'm giving it a bad review." I just think is like such a weird form, and I think like beer criticism is weirdly like such a niche more than almost any other criticism. It's just like you can make a whole personality out of being like, oh, I'm a beer critic, or I'm a beer snob, or I'm a beer rater, or something like that. And it's not to be like the anti that, to be like, I don't give a shit, but I really don't give a shit, because you're just telling me what you like and you don't like.
Right.
Yeah. Because unless like, it doesn't mean you're right. It just means that you like, you're just telling me like, oh, I gave this 2 stars. It's like, great. I don't really care. Now, there's the alternative where it's like, if there's 100 2 stars on a beer or whatever, it's like, all right.
Then maybe there's something wrong with that beer. Yeah, and that's the same with music, with art, with television, movies, and all that stuff.
But there's so actually few things that are that. And
I agree.
Think there's this there's this new, within the last 20 years, especially when, again, relating back to film, where people go like, oh, movies aren't as good as they used to be. It's like, well, kind of like, there's some great movies out there if you like go and look for them, but it's like people want the best of the best or the worst of the worst, because that's the absolute, like, that's what's fun to talk about. And it's the same thing with beer. People want to be like, this is the best beer I've ever had, or this beer sucks. Like, what's the thing about lagers, like in Ontario, it's like, oh, the best lager in Ontario is like 3.5. 3.5 out of 5, that's good. What's wrong with 3.5 out of 5? I drink 3.5 out of 5 every day of the week. That sounds great. If I knew I was getting 3.5 out of 5 every time, I'd drink that.
Yeah.
I'm a happy guy.
Yeah.
I think they're comparing it to the ones that get like, what's the word? Like almost like too many positive reviews, which is the hazy IPAs, pastry stouts, and sours.
Like
and stuff
I think, I think more what it is. Yeah, it's exactly that. It makes me angry to see really good, well-made lagers get 3.5 when there are some breweries who make like some pretty half-assed attempts at hazy IPAs that will get 4.25 and up just purely by virtue of being being hazy IPAs, and from stuff that like genuinely does not taste that great and is like maybe it's oxidized or maybe it's just like super sweet kind of unbalanced garbage. Seen all kinds of them before, and but just because they're hazy IPAs, that's what'll be ordered, or it'll get 4.25 to 4.5. But then they'll get that thing of best lager I ever had, 3.25.
Yeah.
There's just something viscerally on principle that is infuriating about that.
It's not fair. It's the whole system sort of like messed up, and once again, there's some breweries who live and die by that, and that's probably the hazy ones, and everybody else is just like whatever, bro. Czech. I can see you guys. I don't even know if you guys are creating your own check-ins because there's no description on most of the ones that I'm looking at.
Do breweries do their own?
Yeah. Because you can claim claim yourself on Untapped.
At the beginning, we did that. Like when we were.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some power in that because I see a lot of breweries that don't do that, and as a user who I don't look at what anybody else says. I don't give a fuck what anyone. I'll read what people say, but I don't care about the ratings. I'd never even look at it ever. But as someone say, I'm writing something about it. If I want to know about the beer and what's in it, if there's no description there and no little the picture of the label, I'm like, man, it's just a missed opportunity. I own a marketing agency, so I'm looking at it from that perspective where it's like, that's there. I want to learn a bit more about it. Now I know I'm like, well, I got two choices. I can go to the website or I can go to Instagram. Now, being that we run this podcast, I'm like, well, I kind of feel a bit of I should learn a bit more about it if Untapped isn't telling me anything. So I'll go to your Instagram and go and look at what you said when the beer was released.
I know we got to move on to another beer, but
we do.
This is so interesting.
It's like we do.
No. But also the antithesis, or not the antithesis of Untapped, but the brother to Untapped is the vino for wine, and Adam and I are also relatively big-ish wine guys. We like wine, we enjoy it. If you ever go on the Vino and look at their rating system, it is the most equitable rating system. It's everything's between 3.5 and 4.5.
Right.
Nothing's 2.5 because there's so few wines that are 2.5.
It's the supermarket ones.
That's all that stuff is around where it is, and sometimes there's wines where I'll look at it and be and then I've had the wine. I'm I don't know if I agree with that, but it's not out of the realm of where that wine was supposed to be. And it's not to compare beer to wine because they're different things, but I do think that there's this interesting dichotomy of or juxtaposition of people like to justify why a wine is good as much as people like to justify why a beer is bad. The concept of being this wine is amazing.
Interesting.
Has the same social equity as saying this beer sucks. I don't know why that is.
So
it's because, like you said, the best lager in the world, 3.5. But you go to the Vino or whatever, and it's this, Pouligny Montrachet from 1960s, just this is 5 out of 5. This changed my goddamn life. And it's okay.
So people are more inclined to brag about good wines than they are to shit on beer. It's equivalent. You're seeing more people rate wines higher.
I'm thinking about this. I just think there's a tighter gap. It's 4.5 and 3.5 is kind of where you see most wines on the Vino, where beers are 4, 5, 1 or whatever. And part of that might be, and I'm thinking about this on the fly, is the amount of money you spent on the thing that you're drinking.
That's such a good fucking point, dude.
Because
you spend $5, $5 to $10 on the beer, but you're spending minimum 20, really, on anything worth talking about.
So you have to be
It's a bigger dice roll. And you're looking, and you don't want to go into that dice roll and feel like a chump and be like, oh man, I spent $20 on this garbage ass bottle. But it's
to play roulette at a private table with just themselves and be like, oh, by the way, I lost, and tell it to the whole world. They just want to be, you know what I mean? They want to be like, oh no.
What a strange thing. This is so fascinating that you're putting it like this, because it's like, it's so silly, and craft beer is so niche, and it's so important to keep all the breweries around, particularly right now. I feel like every other day I'm going on Instagram and there's a closure in the States. I feel like I'm seeing it almost every day, and there's a couple here and there out here as well. I'm like, by negatively rating something that heavily that isn't that bad, but just because you're being a dick or you're in a mood or whatever it is, like,
or you've just decided that's your personality.
Sure, that too, which is even sadder. Like, you're bringing down a small business when you probably, and there's nothing wrong with working a job, but like, you don't know what it's like to go and get millions of dollars of loans and equity, and the stress because you've got 20 employees you have to pay and make payroll, and then I pay the payroll tax every month. I'm like, you fucking serious? You're taking this much from me? Then you got to pay your quarterly GST and HST remittances and all this. Sorry, monthly, and like all of this different stuff. Like, you don't know the pressure of this stuff. I have a digital business. You guys have a physical. You got like a physical landlord, like rent on top of all the other things, plus physical equipment and all of this stuff. And if you have employees that aren't competent, they're fucking it up. That's fucking up your money off the rip. Like, it's so nuanced and so deep. And the people who are saying this have no comprehension of what it takes to build a business. And it drives me nuts. It pisses me off so much. Like, you don't know what the fuck you doing, bro.
Funnily enough, like, again, this is me thinking on the fly 4 beers deep, but I'm going with it.
We're about to be 7.
We talk about Untapped and why these beers, these pastry sets, these IPAs, like, get rated more. They're more expensive pound for pound when you drink them.
It's true.
So,
but not that much more.
Not
though.
that
like
much more.
$5 to $8 type of shit. Like $3 to $8.
But if you look at if you look at like as a percentage versus like wine, whatever. Like,
that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
The gap is that, or the delta is that huge, where it's just like I have to justify the fact that I spent $5 on a short can of some pastry stout. Not to shit on pastry stout. I don't know why we're shitting on pastry stout.
No one's getting a pastry stout for $5. Damn, that's cheap.
Yeah, okay, fair. And then you're just like, oh, I just spent this much money, so it should be good. And like Adam and I talk about this all the time. It's like, lager should be the most expensive beer in the world.
Because of how much time they take, right?
Because of how much time it is. Obviously, other than like some barrel aged stuff or things that's like half a year. But it's like, you should look at this. Yeah. You should look at it as the same way as like time. And this is something that I've said. It's just like, if I was like, hey, here's a 3-year-old scotch versus a 12-year-old scotch, which should be more expensive? You're like, well, the 12-year-old scotch. Here's a beer that took 3 weeks to make versus one that took 10 weeks to make. Which one should be more expensive? They're like, well, the one that has more hops. And it's like, well, I see where you're going with this, but not really. Like, that is one ingredient, but like the time is the most expensive.
Because it's literally costing the brewery more money. Yeah, I know, I totally get it.
Like there's literally all that time that it's taking up space in your brewery, and that does have a cost. I mean, like, there's a much more direct visual cost in terms of like what's the dollars per pound of it, like of your bag of hops, but like there is also a very real cost to it taking up space in the tank for like for X number of months. Like for every week that's sitting in that tank, that's other beer that can't be made that can't be made in that tank, and like that is that is real, that's substantial, that's that's money. That is that like time is money, really. Like it's not just a figure of speech, it's true.
Yeah,
it's really
the opportunity cost, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, like you guys were saying, like one of those like 2 to 3 weeks. So if we have a beer in there for 10 weeks total, right? That's 2 to 3, 2.5
turnovers
batches of beer that could have been sold.
Yep. Yeah,
so,
of any other style, yeah.
Right. So it's like, how many hops can you put in to make that? Like, you know what I mean?
To
like
make up for that.
I'm not saying hops aren't expensive. They're insanely expensive. But it's like, but people understandably, by the way, like they associate certain things with the cost they're willing to pay, and you can only do so. We're not going to change that model. We're not. It's not what we're trying to do, but it's like sometimes just like just like a bit of. I think let's get too deep and weird about this before we get on to our fifth beer, but it's like a bit more like understanding with some things sometimes could, I think, just like a bit more pause, I guess is what I'm looking for. The word sometimes would be, whether it's before you're like, whether it's your Untapped rating, your Google review, your internal mental review, like before telling someone else about something, or this was overpriced, just be like, hey, like I really try, like now that we've been on the other side of the business, to do that all the time. Like if I go out to a restaurant and maybe it isn't the best experience, firstly, by the way, I would never, the only review I ever write is positive, and I can do that. I just tell people about good things I experience, because I think that goes a lot farther anyways. Agreed. But before I like tell something negative to someone or whatever, I'm like, okay, why maybe would this experience, whether it's like sitting down somewhere, buying a product, whatever, what potentially led to this that might maybe not be a fair representation of what they normally bring to the table, whoever it is, right? I think maybe more pause with that would be good. Or like Matt said, like you guys, like it's like, what is it that I maybe don't like versus is actually bad?
Yeah.
If I don't like the word munch, maybe I should stop reading fucking books. Like, you know what I mean? You know, I don't read his books, by the way. Okay, what beer we at? Nate, it's back to you. What are we doing?
What are we doing? And
then I guess we're back to me now, aren't we?
And I was gonna.
Okay.
We'll do a preface to this.
Yes.
We gave you each cans of the 10. Matt and I actually don't have that. We just gave those for you guys because we don't have any cans of that left, but we just wanted you guys to try it. So the ones that we have left, of our beers, we have mild vodka 12.
Yeah.
And then if you guys want to do more beers, I can drink. I have other beers.
I'm cool with doing. We can save the 10. We can have that separately, and because if you guys don't have it, that's fine. Because that's 6. That's good. So
okay, that's plenty. Yeah. All right. So in that case, we have. So we've talked about the Helles a bunch, and I'm getting mighty curious for it. So let's do the Helles.
I'm gonna go grab that one quickly.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna go to the washroom as well.
I was gonna say what I'll do. I need to go to the washroom too, so maybe I'll just pause the whole thing. I'm just gonna pause, and when we come back, because then we can all kickstart, so no one has to rush. So I'll pause now. Take your time. You're all good. I'm gonna press pause right now, and we'll be back in a sec, yo. Oh, and we are back. Oh, we're back. Everybody's bladder is sufficiently emptied.
Yeah, we're comfortable now.
We're comfortable, and it's time for a Helles. We're switching it up. Yeah. Okay, really stupid question. Can you do a mliko pour from a can? I guess you can't, right?
No, you can't. And I know we just talked about so much stuff on Untapped, but my favorite Untapped review of all time is someone, bless their heart, like, we called our Dortmunder mostly foam because the amount of foam that we pour off the LUKRs or whatever, it was like an inside joke. And someone kind of negatively reviewed the Dortmunder on Untapped because they're like, I poured the beer like as instructed on the can, which said mostly foam, and I just didn't enjoy it. And it's just the first time I was like,
oh my God.
I've never read a can and been like, that's how I'm supposed to enjoy it. Like, that's instruction. There's just the name of the beer.
Oh, my Lord.
People are special.
And people in the retail shop will sometimes come in and look at mostly foam and go like, it's going to be beer, right? I was like, yeah.
It's just a name, bro.
But the amount of times I started getting asked it was kind of like, maybe that joke was mostly for us.
And not for the general consumer.
No, but you can't. It's tricky to do. But we've been at this for a while now. But this label, I think, Adam, and you can agree or disagree, is to me like the encapsulation of what we were going for with sort of like our design aesthetic, like talking about that like nod to the historical like American and European style like.
this and the 12/10 is probably it for me.
Cheers, legends.
Cheers.
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 It's a nice switch up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I
nice.
like
Go for it.
I was gonna say this label, like, I think was the unofficial switch to where we were like, oh, all our labels should kind of like represent kind of what we're going for. This more like, I use the word neo-traditional, but I don't know if I fully agree with that in terms of like the aesthetic, but like
I know what
borrowing
you
from
mean.
the old and like taking with our own, adding our own flair to it. I'm actually just noticing now, I don't know if this is my label or not, but there's like a slight, the metallic is missing on the end of the T on mild lockout, which would be hilarious if I just noticed that right now.
Oh, it
yeah,
is.
yeah, you're right.
You're right.
Wow.
Wow. I feel like you should get the label maker on the phone right now, live on air. Be like, Gavin, I fucking told you.
Oh man, that is,
That'd be a great TikTok for you guys, eh?
yeah.
I wouldn't put you on blast like that. We would never do
Shit.
that.
That's,
It'd be pretty
I don't
damn
know how
fun.
I don't know how we missed that. It's like now that I see it, it's super obvious. But anyway, whatever. Another label mishap that we had. But no,
It's
this
okay.
is like is super. When we first, because the original label for this beer was very different, very like sort of like pop arty 90s, almost like graffiti style, and we switched it to this kind of in response to the Just a Pils label that we were talking about. And I
Yes.
just think like the second we saw this, we're like, oh, that's just what we should be doing. Like it should, like this is the way we're, because it's still very us. It's very in line with like our aesthetic.
It does
and
not
what
feel
we
out
kind
of
of
line at
created
all.
as a brand,
Yeah.
while still feeling like very classic, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can see that. This is a great beer, man. This is like, it's interesting going from the way that we're doing this in such a, we had three, like it's almost like we got progressively darker. Now we're going back to the beginning on that. Excuse me. It's yeah. Talk us through the beer. It's like it's exactly what you expect from a Helles. It's 4.9. It's super crushable, crisp, bready, biscuity.
Yeah, I think that for me, at least, like if you go again, like if you think to like the big, like when I was in Munich, I feel like I'm sort of saying that sentence a lot, but like there's like, I didn't really try and seek out craft beer at all. I kind of went to the big breweries. It was like Paul Anner, Eyinger, Augustiner, Hackershore, like these breweries that are like, I was looking to go to the source to try these beers and their styles they've been working on for hundreds of years. And you try all of their Helles, and they're all, like, honestly, they're all so good, but they're all very different. And that's where like that kind of just personal preference thing comes into play. And for me, my favorite Helles of all time is probably the Augustiner Helles. And why that is because obviously it's very clean, very well-made beer, whatever. But it has this like really, again, this would be a preference thing, kind of sulfury note that in the right amount adds a really nice texture to the beer, I think. Because it's not really there unless you think about it. It's kind of just in the background, and it adds a dimension to it where you're sometimes along conditioning, like when you're very early on, beers can be like super like rotten, like eggy, like sulfury, like it's in your face. And that, if you age a beer long enough, it blows off. So we actually use the Augustiner yeast strain with our Helles. And so I think that we've gotten it to a point where, I'm not saying it's as good, nothing will ever be as good as that beer for me, but it's in that realm where we've kind of started to balance those things out. Where you have that, like Craig, you were saying, that breadiness, you have that texture, that bland wateriness that we all look for. No, just kidding. But it's all in balance, or it's starting to all be in balance. It's within that kind of that spectrum that we want it to be in. And to me, like, Helles is a beer that you can drink all day. You can sit and be like, wow, I love this beer, but then you can just forget about it. And that's the best part, is sometimes just forgetting about it. You know, like a beer that you can just be like, oh, this is so good, and then just like enjoy the conversation that we're with. It's kind of like, this conversation is in a lot of ways a great encapsulation of it. I know we're talking about the industry and things like that, but it's like, we open a beer, you chat about it with your pals, and for a second, and then you're like, all right,
You
great.
just keep yapping.
Yeah. Just keep yapping. Right? So
This is again a thing of like a beer that you can forget about would have been a great episode name. Like if we haven't already had the Milkman.
The Milkman
Yeah.
with heavy cream.
yeah.
Don't forget the heavy cream.
Yeah, a forgettable beer with some forgettable people. That's like
Oh, that's just too savage.
Mm.
The heavy cream gets it. Okay, what I really want to get into, just because I want to make sure we get this in concrete here, was just I'd love to talk about your beer history, how you guys both got into beer. It's just so funny to me because literally we do this in the first 5 to 15 minutes, and it's 2 hours and 2.5, just crossed 2.5 hours. I think it's fucking hilarious because the conversation was that good. We just,
Now?
pardon?
Is that a good sign that we haven't gotten to it?
Yes, I think it's a fantastic sign. I think this is
Oh, it's fantastic.
This is a phenomenal conversation, and it's been such a vibe that we've all just ran with where it's going and not had to really worry about the way that we do it. It was just more like, well, it kind of makes sense to talk about that stuff in the beginning, but who gives a shit as long as we get there? Because I feel like it's almost like kind of cooler because we've had so much context.
Yeah.
About you guys, about how you've worked in the past and what the deal is. So it'd be cool just to hear how you both, I don't know whoever wants to start, but how you both sort of maybe met, and then how you got into beer, and then how that led to the brewery. And I know you've got an interesting story even, leading up to that. And one of the things that we champion here, I love contract brewery success stories, because I feel like contract breweries got shit on in this province so bad. And it's been a pet peeve of mine since we started. I hate it so much because I'm like, it's such a great way to start a brewery. And Ontario, for some reason, particularly likes to shit on that and not particularly support that. And I don't love it. So whenever I see a brewery that actually lives that and starts there and then ends up where you guys are at, I'm just like, that's the ultimate kind of fuck you to the people who shit on contracts. So I'd love to hear the story, guys.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, Adam and I have known each other since,
I'd say too long.
yeah.
That's a fair amount of time.
We've known each other since high school. We went to high school together. Yeah, I think, I guess going from that, like my history in beer is very different than Adam's. We've kind of touched on this when we were talking about like tasting through like tanks and stuff like that. Like, I think what makes us a good team is that we come at this from very different angles. I think my history in beer was, like I said, I worked in film before this. It was my first sort of like interest came in beer when I was over in Belgium doing a documentary about brewers coming over to Canada to work. It was like a corporate sponsored documentary. It's very cool, but I got to hang out with a lot of brewers in Belgium and Belgian brewing culture, which I really like. It's not my favorite style of beer in the world. No shots to Belgium and the beer. It's amazing, but like it was like the first time I was like, oh, this is so different than what I ever kind of imagined, and then came back and started wanting to like kind of shift gears into a different industry, and then that's how Adam and I connected. But I think Adam's journey is a little bit more interesting than mine, so I'll cede the floor to him while I drink beer number
5.
That was a long count.
Definitely shows it's been 5 beers.
Yeah. For me, like Matt was saying, we've known each other since high school. So we've been like, Matt and I were like friends in high school, and then like weren't really like friendly when we saw each other throughout.
Yeah.
These again, like when after we graduated, started seeing each other again. But like in between, like I went to school in Montreal. I went to McGill.
Gang.
Let's go. 514.
That's fucked up.
Don't have my number. Anyway, I gotta get a local one. Studied economics. I kind of like, if I like, the more and more we get into this, the more and more I kind of look back and I was like, oh, I realized very soon that wasn't for me. I don't think. Not that I wasn't like, didn't have the mind for. I just didn't have the passion for it or anything. But you spend years doing something. I did my undergraduate in that, and I got a job in finance in Toronto, and I just felt like I had to like give it a shot. But like the more and more I went down the line, I didn't like it. And my cousin, we have like, it's not a family cottage, but it was my aunt's cottage, which we all kind of go to. This is kind of like coinciding a bit when like Bellwoods opened.
So April 2012.
Yeah. So started bringing beers up. It was a couple of years after that. So it's like 2013, 2014, 2015, that kind of range.
Okay.
Started bringing beers up to the cottage. I remember like he would bring like Grizzly Bear, which was like their brown ale and whatever. Just like random beers from there. And I would like often be like, yeah, shit. I was drinking like Boreal and Pabst and Molson Dry and whatever at school. And then like everyone has with whatever it is that like the one. I don't even remember. I actually think it might have been Wizard Wolf, to be honest.
Ooh, killer.
Yeah. And started drinking that. And then I just like, I have a personality whenever I become interested in something, I just become obsessed with it.
Gotcha.
And so I started getting like, just like deep diving into the shallow end into the beer thing, kind of coinciding with me like graduating and like finding my way in the working professional world and also hating it. And eventually, like, my buddy and I, Rafi from school, who also went to McGill with me, we started homebrewing, like, real, like, not to make meth a theme of this podcast, but, like real bathtub style, like, kind of homebrewing, like...
Breaking Bad shit.
Yeah, exactly. And we started doing that, and I was like, you know what? Like, maybe I should, like, give this a shot. And I kind of had this whole plan laid out. Like, I had been going to Volo, Brewery Volo, Bar Volo for many years. I had become friendly with Julian and Tom. And my whole kind of plan was like, all right, I knew they were opening up their second spot and they were going to have a brewery there. Here's what I'll do. I'll get a job there while they open up their second spot. Maybe I can get like brewing experience there. And then there's this program in Chicago and Munich that I can go to. And then I can go do that. I can get a job somewhere and maybe one day I'll open my own brewery. Right? And this is like a 10-year plan, let's say. I don't know. I didn't know what the timeline was, whatever it was. And so they took a chance. I had no serving experience, whatever. I went to Breweria in college and I worked there for a while. And Julian and Tom, like, I'm very grateful to them. They were like, yeah, we know you, like, and they gave me a job. And that whole project took a bit longer than expected, whatever. And in the meantime, Matt and I were friends, and he approached me one day, kind of like from the other side of what he just told you, and was like, hey, I have this idea. And it's like a really weird thing when you have like a plan and a progression in mind, and then someone approaches you and you're like, oh, wait, this is like a lot sooner than what I was planning out in my head. Like, am I ready for this? Is this a smart play? Is blah, 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 and whatever. And eventually got to the decision where I was like, yeah, like, why would you not? Like there's nothing to lose. By the way, in between this, there's like 14 months of unemployment. So that was a real like, kind of fire under my ass as well. So we started this thing, which was like March or whatever, mid 2019, and eventually
it was early 2019. I think we got together like in earnest because there was like, again, it's weird that we were on like parallel tracks, not really talking about, because like while Adam is doing that side of being like, oh, I will homebrew and get to know this side of the industry, I was also unemployed because I was working in the film industry, and I was like, oh, I'll go work. I worked at Brunswick on their packaging line for like 5 months, and I got a sense of, okay, this is what this kind of looks like. And then I worked for an agency for a couple months, and I was like, okay, this is how you do this. And like buddy of mine, Ben, who now works for, or is part of like sort of the ACE iconic group, like Cottage Springs, like he kind of walked me through what it looks like to like be a rep for the LCBO and like how to become an agent and some offsite sales, what that looks for. So it's like I was getting that part of the industry experience, while Adam was getting the other side of the industry experience. And then, yeah, I kind of was like, oh, okay, maybe this is what I'll do instead. I know nothing about the brewing side. I know about like this side of thing, but I don't know anything about this. I knew Adam wanted to do that. And then we were just like having beers, and then it was just like, oh, fuck it. You know what? This makes way more sense for us to do this together, because I think like it's so. I think we'd have both like done things in a bit. I sometimes think about like what the Adam brewery would look like and what the Matt brewery would look like, and I think they'd both be kind of insane. I think the Adam one would be more successful because he has the talent, but like, but it's kind of just like, oh, this just makes more sense because we had kind of been learning this stuff on parallel tracks at the same time. And then, yeah, that was, I think we officially kind of like started it together, I'll say like super early 2019, like February of 2019. Yeah. And then we got it together. And then, yeah, we contracted probably 3 years at that point, because it
was right when we opened in July of 2022, and like I think like the end goal was always what we're doing now. I wouldn't say like, I would be lying if I said it was what we are doing now, but it was what we were gonna do now, if that makes sense. Like the end goal was always to have a place where we can have people come in. The one thing I learned about spots, like, because I told you my cousin started bringing beers from Bellwoods, and naturally I started like going there. And what I learned very quickly, and I guess I was just lucky that that was one of the first places I went, was like how important an experience is to your brand. One of the reasons why I love Bellwoods so much, and I'm not saying great beer, but it's almost independent of that. That's just the cherry, is because I have so many great memories there with friends, with family, with whatever. Whether it's a quick drink on the patio or putting in as what Matt and I like to call a shift, where we're there for 6 to 8 hours, where you had other plans and you canceled them all and just stayed there all day. Like, have that positive association. And I think that, Matt, that was something, not necessarily for that place, but just in general, we had this commonality of like, we have had those places in our life, whether it be eating, drinking, sitting down, it doesn't matter. Positive association where it's like someone can build an association in their mind where if you can build that space for them, they will come back, they will tell people about it. You will, in theory, be successful if you can also couple that with a product that you work hard at and are proud of. So that was always our end goal, I think, was to like have a place like that. I don't think I would be lying if I said I knew what that was going to be. Because like at that point in time when we started, like my drinking, like Craig, we were talking about this a bit, like my drinking patterns were very different. Maybe they were like tailing off of like the hazy IPAs and stuff like that. Not because like, just like for me personally, but I just knew that if you built that, it's the, not to be cheesy, but it's like the Field of Dreams argument, right? Like if you build it, they will come, right? Like, and so as we kind of went through it, like that program, because we started this sooner, like that was like, I'm not putting off, but like I have to find time to do while we're doing this, which I did. And I'm very excited. That's where I learned everything, because I didn't have any commercial brewing experience. Like even home brewing, like I did, but I didn't. Like, I don't know, like even still, like I think I'll say for myself, like I have like huge amounts of imposter syndrome. Like when I'm talking to, like, we'll talk about it on our next beer because it's the only Czech beer we have in our lineup. But like this sounds like super lame and whatever, but like, I don't know, for me personally, like I'm a huge fan and like admirer of Godspeed and what they've done. Not only them, who I now am lucky enough to consider a friend, but like people like Max, who was there, who's like a great guy, and Jeff, who was there, who's a great guy, and like these people who I consider my friends and can learn from, right? Like I'm talking to these people sometimes and I'm like, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And I know it's just beer, like it's only a beer, but like that's our industry as well, right? So like for me, those are people who I like admire and like I would love to learn a lot from and be in the position to work with and whatever. And so like to be like in those, I don't even fully remember where I was going with that. I lost my train of thought.
It's beer number 5. It's okay, bro. Seriously.
Number 5. But it's like, you know, like all those things are important. To have those people, it's important. And like, I think we always wanted to have a place where we could, no matter what it was, and we kind of leaned into the beers we're making now anyways, like as we started drinking more, and as Craig, like I was telling you, like I spent time in Munich, and I really like just felt passionate about the lager side. And I think that Matt was very closely like with me, or if not a bit behind me, probably just because I kept bringing him beers that I really like, and he would drink them and be like, "Oh, this is good," and then like eventually it's just like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
The thing
now
I can,
same shit.
the thing I can still remember is when we were like planning out what our brewery would look like, and Adam's like, and we'll have a space for like barrel aging, and that has just like gone out the window. And like I think the thing is like, obviously I'm fully converted. Like I just want to drink lagers. That's all I want to drink. But the side of this industry that interests me was always like, I like the selling part of it, honestly. Like my dad's a constant salesman. Like I learned from him. Like it's been in my blood since I was born. Like all that shit. Like I think like looking at a beer and being like, oh, going out and selling this, like how do we make this work and stuff like that. Like the puzzle pieces behind it, I think is really cool. And I think that there's a good balance where you can find. It's like, oh, okay, you make like, I think we make our lives easier because Adam gives me, in my humble opinion and truthful opinion, I think the best product in the province. It's easy for me to go sell that shit, whether it's over the bar or to another bar. It's like, oh yeah, I truly believe when I tell people I'm like, this is the best. Is every single one the best? No, I think there are some styles like that I will eat. Like we always pump up Godspeed. Like there's some, there's beers. It's like their Czech styles are unbelievable compared to ours. But like focusing on German that we did really early on has like weirdly put us in a really strong position in this province, because like you'd be shocked at the amount of breweries that didn't focus a lot on German style beers early on. It's like a weird thing to think about because it's German style beers. Like there's such a rich history, but like I think within the first, we didn't put out our first non-German beer, Adam, what was it, to like a year in, something like that? Like it was a long time. I mean, we did like an Italian Pils, we did a Vienna lager and stuff like that, but like for the most part, we were just focusing on German styles, which I thought was like a really conscious effort, but a smart effort to kind of like have this thing that we stuck on. And like I think this idea of like having a brewery in this province or anywhere, honestly, where it's just like we just make beer, we make all this different kinds of beer, I don't know where that's going to be in like a couple of years from now. I think you kind of got to come out and be like, this is the kind of stuff we like to make. I don't care what that is, but you got to be like, this is the stuff we like to make.
I think that I think a huge kind of groundbreaker for us, which was not by any calculation whatsoever, was the Hefeweizen.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And like German wheat beer, just like I spent time there, and I just love that beer so much, and we just made it, and then have been pursuing that and Dunkel and like different offshoots of that, and like just like the weird gap that I didn't even maybe Matt did. I didn't think that it would fill. Like great approachable style of beer that appeals to everyone, beer drinkers, non-beer drinkers. Like, not when I say non-beer drinkers, I mean non-beer drinkers, like not us four in this chat right now. Like
right. More casual approach.
Exactly, yeah. And like I just think that like going back to what I said about focus and like being passionate about something, never mind like being fulfilling for yourself and whatever and all the cheesy stuff, which is true but cheesy. If you think about it from a business perspective, it's so easy to draw people in with something that you yourself are passionate about. Like, because it means one, like I think innately, eventually your product's going to be good, right? It's going to be better. You're going to want to make it better. And you're going to like, people are attracted to things that like someone who's talking to them is passionate about, even if it's from a selling perspective, right? Like it's so good for you guys, like in the positions, like even if like you're just amongst friends and you guys are really passionate about a beer from a brewery or whatever, or going to a brewery or whatever, like I'm sure they're into it most of the time, at least to give it a try, right? Because it's just like they see your passion and they're like, this is my, like, you know what I mean? There's like, I feel like trust and passion are somewhat intertwined like that. And like, if you can have more of it and be more caring about what you're putting out, and there are a lot of breweries that do that in the province. Like we are not by any means the first or the last people that are going to do that. But I think what like Nat was saying, like the just blindly putting out things because it's a trend or you think it's popular, I don't know how that is going to go going forward, because like you're saying, like Craig, like Nate, like you've seen like the closures and stuff like that, like it's more than ever. Everything, unfortunately, and like I don't want any of that to happen. I wish we could all like be like, you know, 2016, 2017 breweries. Like everyone just, you know,
thriving.
Put some fruit in a sour and you're good to go forever. Like, like you know what I mean? But it's like, unfortunately, it's not like that. And I think also this is just a coincidental part. And I meant to say this a while ago, like in our conversation. Like, I think we're lucky that the beer that we're passionate about is very widely accepted. What's the word? Drunk.
Yeah.
Like, it's like it's
consumed.
A whole thing, right? Like the amount of people that have come in who have, I guess, don't know what we are, and they're like, yeah, I'll get a Canadian, and it's like, okay, instead of being, not that Matt or I or anyone who works for us would ever be an asshole, but instead of being like, well, we don't do that here, it's like, okay, well, listen, we don't have that here. We're a brewery, make all our beer in-house, but here's what we focus on. Here's what we have on tap right now that might be similar to that. A big one was in the summer. People would come in. We had our Shank beer on tap, which was like a 3.4% version of our Helles. Let's say that. And we would say, here's what we have. Here's why it's similar to that, and maybe just give it a try. And that might be something that's up your alley. And like I personally had 3 people, which for me is a lot because I don't work the bar that much, who would come in and they were looking. They came in being like, I'll take a Canadian, and they stayed for 3 half liters of those.
Wow.
Right. So it's like that kind of thing where it's like, I guess that maybe we're lucky that it's more approachable and like it resonates with more people who might not be in the world or care about the world that we're in and like to talk about. But yeah, I just think that, yeah, it's going to be an interesting world going forward. And like, you want to try and like be passionate about what you're doing. I think that'll help make people feel welcome about coming in and like educating them in a non-pretentious way about why you're doing what you do, why it's worth what they have to pay, because people work hard for their money, right? And they're willing to put on less and less places. And just like, kind of like, for better or for worse, lean into that. I think that's kind of how you're going to get through it. I don't even remember where we started on that rant. Holy shit.
It's all good. I feel like it, once
man,
again.
that was gold.
Yeah, y'all just dropping gems on everybody here. We were really just trying to just get the beer history and all of your sort of like philosophy.
I was also trying to figure out where I was like, oh yeah.
Well, you're talking about your philosophy of beer, so it was completely the question that we were asking. What I'm thinking now, we're coming up on 3 hours. Let's crack this last beer.
Yeah.
We can get into a few fun. It's the 12 we're doing, right?
12, yeah. Let's do it.
So this is the first and only Czech beer we're doing this evening, which is very cool. Let me show you this bad boy. Oh, yeah. Yeah, check that. Get it? Check that out. Thanks, Nate. Thanks for appreciating it. Hey. That was pretty good, no?
No, that was pretty good, actually. That was pretty good, actually.
I appreciate you, Nathan. All right, we're fucking doing it. Now,
you have a curfew. I'm sorry to keep you guys. We're sorry to keep you guys long.
No, it's all good.
No, you know what? I was like I'm kind of dying. I've got an 18-month-old son who's going to be waking me up at 6 o'clock. But this conversation is just so good that I can't I can't walk away from it. This is I'm truly enjoying this. I'm appreciating your guys' insight and your time, and it's just been a pleasure chatting with you. So this has been fantastic.
Well, the
Guys,
feeling
I'm having a terrible time drinking beers with friends.
yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is probably the best. If you're gonna have a podcast, have a fucking beer podcast, man. It's the best because the people are the coolest, and then you all get drunk together. So even if obviously, not every brewery is sort of rip ready fucking to go on a podcast. Not everyone feels comfortable. Get a few of these bad boys in you, mate. Everyone's ready to yap. So it's.
I can't wait to wake up tomorrow morning and be like, oh my god, there's 3 hours of this.
Oh yeah.
On file somewhere.
Nate, if it makes you feel any better, Matt's like my 18-month-old son that's gonna wake me up at 6 in the morning. It's fine.
There you go.
People who wake up at 6 a.m. in the morning, it is not me. So let's.
I'm up.
Oh, tell me about it. The only time I'm ever getting up at 6 a.m. is if I got to get a flight, and even then I'm pissed.
You know how many times I'll wake up for a flight at 6 a.m. and go, I don't need to go there?
Yeah.
I hate traveling. I will just be like, no, I don't need to.
Honestly,
I'll
bro.
sit at the edge of the bed and be like, no, doesn't.
Do we have to?
I'd rather go. Yeah, I'd be like, do we have to?
Is this necessary?
How much do I really want to go there?
Yeah. Do you know what the best part is? Honestly, I haven't flown since December 2019, and I have no intention. My girlfriend and I, if my car can't take me there, then I don't want to go there at this particular point in time.
All right, I like
We
that.
drove-
That's my.
It's the best way, bro. We drove to Florida. I was telling Adam that we drove to Florida for a month. We drove to Key West. You think Hamilton all the way to Key West. We took photos at the southernmost point of the continent. And we just drove down there, and it was lit because you can go to breweries all the fucking way down. It's the best. And the planes, what are they doing? Losing your baggage. You got to sit next to some dickhead. They can't take a fucking dog on there. They make it super difficult. Bro, what's the point? I hate airports. You got to drink whack beer and eat overpriced food and wait on people's time. I hate being on someone else's time. Fuck you. I can leave when I damn well please.
But I like other airports.
You like what?
Last flight I took was when I was going to the Milkman's bachelor party in New Orleans.
Milkman.
But
Heavy
we stopped
cream.
over in Atlanta, and we went to a Ludacris' spot. I guess he's a chicken spot that's in Atlanta, but it's in the airport. And I was just drinking. What's the big
Sweetwater?
Atlanta brewery?
Oh, Halfway Crooks.
Halfway Crooks.
Oh, you had Halfway Crooks in the airport?
Oh my god! Yeah, because it's at Ludacris has built I guess a chain of chicken spots that have craft beer on them. So I was just drinking Halfway Crooks for 3 hours waiting for a flight. It was awesome.
Amazing.
Halfway Crooks are fire. We went. I was telling Adam we went there in Atlanta.
Unreal.
It was great.
So
The
good.
crispies are fire.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Their Pilsner
Killer.
is spectacular. It's so
Yeah.
good.
All that shit is fire. Speaking of fire crispies, get this Czech Pilsner up here.
Yeah.
Or actually,
Cheers.
I'm sorry, it's a Czech Pale Lager. I apologize.
So this is our 12 degree. You guys have the 10, which we didn't.
No, but we're doing just the 12 tonight, and I kind of feel like 6 beers is suitable.
Yeah, that was just for your own personal leisure.
Well, I appreciate that, and I value that, and I will be leisurely enjoying that beer tomorrow. Don't you fucking worry about that, man.
Indeed.
Tell us about this beer.
So this is our Czech 12 degree pale lager. The 10 is our 10 degree. So it's kind of in Czech pub drinking culture, it's kind of the 10 degree is your pub strength. So ours is 3.7%, as you guys can see when you look at the can. It's kind of like a beer you would drink all night. That's kind of your Czech pale lager. Technically, your 12 degree would be your Czech premium pale lager. It's it's the same for us. It's the same recipe, just with a bit more oomph. So for us, we do this very traditionally, all Czech saws, all floor malted Bohemian Pilsner malts, very long brew day, very intense decoction mash. We try to do it as traditional as possible. Czech yeast, we use the wood fire yeast, and then a very cold, long fermentation, long conditioning time, all that stuff.
Okay.
And we've only done these 2 Czech beers. We actually have some cool Czech beers coming up with some malts that we've sourced from Indiana. Craig, I was telling you a bit about some breweries I went down and visited.
Yes.
In Chicago and on the way to Chicago, and managed to get introduced to / drink some beers with malt that were from this kind of smaller maltster. And he's using a very kind of like, I'd say rare, like hard to find. He brought back a handful of seeds from the Czech Republic with him and his wife that are of Czech heritage back to his farm in Indiana, and he grew them up over years and finally is now able to sell them to the public. And I'm really excited to work with them. We worked with some really cool breweries. The beers that I drink that were made with them are great. Other than that, these are the 2 Czech beers that we've made. And part of that is like, I was mentioning, and like, I don't want to like, obviously, like I've mentioned, like how close we are with, Godspeed and like those guys and how much we respect what they do. And part of that is because like, one, how much I respect the brewing culture of the Czechs and like how kind of little I knew about it. And we didn't want to make beers from there until we kind of were comfortable with our system and kind of knew the approach we wanted to take with them to hopefully make the best beer possible. But also, like, I think there's something to say, like, I think we all know that Godspeed has, like, rightfully so, cornered out a bit of the market from the Czech perspective. They make, in my opinion, I haven't been there, but judging by who they've worked with and everything, world-class, I'm willing to say, confidently Czech lagers. And, like, we didn't start, like, making a bunch of those beers. Like, like, we started off with, like, Matt was saying, like, I think we were, like, very focused on the German side of things. Like, I don't know if there's anyone else that's, like, strongly focusing on that and pretty much only that. In our immediate area, I will say.
Not that I can think of. No.
Yeah. And so we didn't want to, like, impose on that for Godspeed. But we're very also interested in that brewing culture and wanted to try and, like, give our own take on it and, like, throw our hat into the ring, so to speak. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
So these are the 2 beers that we've made so far. We're pretty proud of them. They've come over, the 10 we released as one of the 3 beers we did for our first anniversary for our own space. And then this we just kind of put out within the last couple of weeks. So, yeah.
It's great, man.
Amazing.
That's super. 4.5%. So it's that Czech pale lager. So they're super crushable. They're very, very light beers. Malty caramel, bready, a little bit herbal and grassy in there.
There's like this beautiful like candied lemon note as well that I'm really that like has like grown on me because it's the one I work behind the bar a lot more, or I'm at there or whatever, and like it gets boring. Daddy needs a beer every now and then. Like I find myself just reaching for the 12 more and more over the last like week and a half, and it's just it scratches that particular itch that I think Czech lagers do so well, where it has like it's almost like the synthesis of everything. Like it's like a Dortmunder and a Pilsner and like not really a Helles, but it's like a Dortmunder and Pils had like a baby, where you get that like minerality, that bitterness, that malty character, that like beautiful like little candied lemon kind of note or preserved lemon kind of note as well. And they all come together. And this one for me is just like, oh, I could drink this all the time. Now I say that, and then you drink it all the time, and you're like, I would like something new, but like this one definitely like.
I think one of the great things about Czech lager is like it balances, like it straddles this line between like you're saying drinkability, but in contrast to what we've been talking about with German lager, it actually strives for body depending on what like you are trying to straddle that drinkability, that hop presence like Matt's saying, but also that body and that malt character that makes it's there. Like it's not, it falls off, but doesn't fall off. I'm doing a lot of these like contradictory like sentences. I'm realizing, by the way, I'm fully aware of what is coming out of my mouth.
Now we're a good we're a good 6 beers in, so like this is where the good stuff comes out.
But it's like, I think that's why these beers, like the way they're brewed so traditional. Like we were talking about before, like aging times and things like that. Like, do you think there's a certain thing and a certain point where it's like diminishing returns? And I was saying, decoction mashing is kind of like another aspect of the brewing process that's like that for me, where like a lot of people would argue that it is a super inefficient use of time, which I would agree with, but it is efficient, in my opinion, if you're trying to get a certain dimension to your end product. Like, I think there are things you can accomplish with proper decoction mashing that you cannot accomplish in any other way. And yes, it takes more time, and you could get to that not same point, but a similar endpoint, and without doing it, yes. But like, you get that like depth, that structure, that body without having to add more malt and getting that sweetness that goes along with it. Like, I think there's no better example with that than Czech lager. Like, you have all those things working together where it's like, it lets you know it's there and then it's gone, but you can still somehow drink it all night. Like,
And it's so...
Go ahead.
No, please.
No, that's it. Like, that's kind of like, you know, and I'm not, again, this is not there, but like drinking Bim's beer, like, for me, I tell him all the time, for me, his 10 degree, the one, do you remember the one I'm talking about? It's like the white label, it's got like the kind of like checker, like
the Czech flag.
Yeah.
He hasn't made that in so long. I always ask him about it every time he makes it. I'm like, that is probably my favorite, one of my favorite beers I've had. It is the perfect blend of everything, drinkability, but it's like there. And like, I don't know, I'm sure he has obviously his reasons he would make it, you know, whatever. But that
I feel like
beer,
he's doing Sklepnik more, like the pitch lined barrel aged one.
It's also a phenomenal beer. Like, it's not like a, you know, one or the other, but it's, yeah, that is one of my favorite beers from him. And I think it's just like Czech pale lager in general is just like a perfect, when done right, is like a perfect balance of everything.
I think what I'm sort of hearing
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the best part about it, though, from the true history side, was you've got mostly German stuff that we had tonight. Then you have this, and it's totally different. And I feel like it's really illustrating the point that, like, within the realm of sort of lagers and pilsners, there's so much differentiation. Like, none of these 6 beers that we've had tonight taste the same at all. They're so deeply different. And then if you look at Godspeed, who do it all Czech, all their shit is totally different to your stuff. So it's like, there is room in the market.
Yeah. And even they do great German stuff. Like, they
do too. Yeah, absolutely. It's like the
like,
opposite to y'all.
Yeah. Sorry?
They do mostly Czech with a little bit of German. You do mostly German with a little bit of Czech.
Yes.
So, see, the thing that you said that I have kind of come around on, and actually something that I will tell people when they come into the bar sometimes. And again, I don't mean this to be a shit on Hazy's session. That's not my point. But like we drank 6 different lagers. The variety and the difference between all those lagers,
it's crazy.
You just won't find that in IPAs. Like, you just won't. Like, West Coast style, East Coast style.
That's just like a generality thing.
Yeah, it's a generality thing. Like, you definitely can, but like, you've got
I know what you mean.
German style Dunkel. You've got like a bigger version of a Helles. You got the Helles. You got the Märzen. You got the Czech style. You've got just a Pils. Like, the subtleties, like, when you think of like lagers and you put them together, you're like, oh, there's just a bunch of lagers. But like, the subtleties aren't that subtle when you drink them back to back. Where I think that with like the IPA world that has been so dominant and has done so well in this province, in this country. And this is nothing to say about the producers of that product. I'm not denigrating the product itself. I'm talking about the spectrum. I think the spectrum of lagers is actually larger than people think. Maybe that's a better way of putting it.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's
I'll agree with that.
Undoubtedly a fact. And I think people don't understand it unless you go to a place like True History and actually see it. And you're like, whoa, these are all lagers. These are all so different. And you could have a different experience. We've like, it's very, very impressive to have 6 different beers in an evening that are completely different and give you a completely different tasting experience. And it doesn't feel like you just been sitting on lagers all night. You know, it's like it can be, you do want that differentiate. Like kind of what you said, Matt, where you're like, oh, I could drink this forever. Then you drink it forever. You're like, oh, fuck, I want something else. Whereas like we've been drinking lagers all night. I could not be more satiated. And I'm a dude who likes a bit of variety in the styles.
Yeah, satiated.
But these are so different.
Like truthfully, like Craig and I are both like pretty intense haze boys, and I'm so happy right now.
So deeply happy.
So happy.
Could not
right
be more
now.
satisfied.
I'm not wishing I was drinking haze right now. The beers tonight have been so fucking money.
Yeah. And that it scratches that itch of like, it's sort of speaking. Were we talking about it earlier tonight? I don't even know, bro. It's been 6 beers, but like, you know, I start every drinking session. My optimal drinking session is some sort of crispy. If I got short cans, I like to do 2 and 2 different ones, maybe like a Helles and a dark lager, or you know something like that, just to try and switch them up, or Vienna and a Czech, something like that. And then go on to maybe like a light, 6.5 IPA, then maybe like a Westie, and then like a double IPA, and then like a low ABV stout or a sour, something like that. And that's like a nice evening for me. But like, definitely doing a couple of crispies. So to have 6 crispies, and like Nate said, and it's not bullshit, like completely satiated by the 6 different varieties of this. Like I don't feel any need like, oh man, I can't wait till this wraps up so I can grab a crispy. A hazy boy. Like I feel, grab another crispy. Like
not at all.
Grab that 10. Grab that. Like
yeah.
It's just so cool. It's really cool to see it and to actually experience it. Because Nate, I could probably say we've never done a podcast like this where we've had 6
never
lager family beers in a row that are all extremely different, and then like. No, I could drive a car now, and maybe not. But you know what I mean.
I thought you were gonna say you've never done a podcast like this because of the 2 people on the podcast. Not the
you guys are spectacular. We've done 6 beers before.
I mean, that's actually true too. That's actually true too. To be honest, this is one of this has been one of the easiest free flowing conversations on a podcast that we've ever had. At least any of the ones that I've been involved with, I'm pretty comfortable saying.
And to take nearly 3 hours before we even got.
This has really been a genuine pleasure, and it has been so easy chatting with you guys.
The conversation is fire, and no, that's not. Nate's not exaggerating. This shit is. You guys know how easy this went. And on top of that, just the way that the beers flowed, the fact that it took 2.5+ hours or whatever to get to the first question is like indicative of how fire the conversation was. And
we spent 30 minutes talking about lactose, so we don't even make milkshake sours.
I just forgot about it. Please. Maybe we could change that, Maddie.
We nearly killed Craig. We nearly broke him.
It was. I just want to thank you guys for that laugh. Like I think I'm a big fan of comedy. I like having fun on podcasts. It's just beer. We can't take this stuff too seriously. But for some reason, the milkman and the heavy cream just fucking kill me. It's the funniest shit. I could just picture this. I can't wait to meet Alan. Right?
Alan's our GM, which
we should also meet him. Yeah,
big ups, Alan. I can't fucking wait to get down.
First off, the fact that we've talked 3 hours about this company that we started and haven't mentioned Alan is the longest we've talked about True History. Like Alan is a whole separate podcast. Alan's
the goat.
He's the goat.
We got to figure out a way to get us all down to Buffalo with Alan.
Yeah, I'm pretty close. Let's fucking.
Gabriel's Gate.
You try his milk. Anyway, no.
I'll try Alan's milk pause. No problem. Let's fucking go. Heavy cream from Alan. Alan's
Oh
heavy
my
cream.
god.
I paused it. And what's the name of the milkman again?
So his name's Alex, but
Alex.
he's Raz. He's Raz.
Raz. Big up Raz.
Yeah, big up
It's
Raz.
just, I don't know. I feel like it cleaned my sinuses. I laughed that hard. It was just glorious, and I appreciate you both. It's no, for real though. Like honestly, you guys are both fucking champions. But like the actual products that you guys are putting out are obviously very thoughtful, intentional, which I love, and like you've really created. So I can't fucking wait to get down there, to actually see it in person and to get some mlikos in me because so there's some challenges for the milkman. Is this the UFC? Because it's about to be a problem. It's about to be a problem for Alex.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Heavy cream division. Yeah, let's
Heavy.
I've still never had a mliko pour myself, so I feel like
you gotta come down,
it's
man.
gonna
Like,
have to happen at True History.
Toronto. Like,
I want to deliver your first heavy cream Miliko directly.
okay.
I said I paused it earlier.
Oh
when
my
you pause
God.
it,
Oh
it's
my
fine. So I had one sort of like, we're coming in 3.25 hours. I know everyone's like, it's been a time. I just wanted to get the last thing here because we didn't really touch on this that much.
Yeah.
Once again, being a contract brewery and turning that into a physical space, I think is a beautiful thing. And I feel like Ontario has had an unfortunate history of not really supporting contract breweries along the way. And I think personally as a business owner that contracting is the smartest way to start a brewery to then, test out the market and lead that through. Is there anything you guys can just speak to on why you started contracting to then get you to where you're at now? Was there like a plan? Was it to kind of market test and learn the LCBO system and blah, blah, blah? Or is there anything you can say on that?
I think from the contracting side, I think Adam would maybe agree with this. It's a money thing. Like, this is not a cheap business to get into. You need a lot of capital to open a brewery, especially of our size, because we talked a little bit about like how space means more for us as a lager brewery than it does as like a hazy brewery or whatever, because we need more tanks, we need more time. It was a great way to sort of like test the market, test product, and going to like Adam's point about imposter syndrome. Like we would have been like 26-ish when we started this. Like we were idiots. Like no one should have trusted us with the amount of money that it took to open a space like this. So like to have a system in place that basically like lets you be like, hey, market test your ideas. In sort of with a safety net environment, like is a great system. Now, Adam will speak to it better than I can. The same, or will agree with me that like the styles of beer we were making in terms of the contract brewing provided some challenges.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole other hour podcast.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's sort of one of those like, we respect the people that we were contract brewing with. Basically, when we were coming in and being like, hey, we want to lager this for like 6 weeks or whatever, being like, are you out of your mind? It's like, yeah, they're not wrong. They are 100% right to be like, why are you? No, like that's a bad business model.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's a couple beers that we got away with actually doing that long on. And I think those are like, we got very lucky with getting that amount of time. Maybe not 6 weeks, but like getting more time than we should have. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite something.
So we got lucky occasionally with some of the beers that we made, but like those beers sold really well, and we were able to sort of show people like, hey, this is what we can do contracting. And it also forced us, not to take this podcast even longer, but it forced us to sell to licensees very early on, because that's basically the only way we can make money. So we opened our brewery with like a good resume of like licensees and bars and restaurants we could work with. So it wasn't like we were opening completely new, being like, hey, licensees, which is like, growing more and more like a super important part of our business, being like, oh man, we got to start from scratch. While also like Adam and I spending almost every waking hour at the bar being like, okay, wait, how do we sell this? Like we basically started being like, yeah, we've got like 30 licensees that we can call basically whenever we want, being like, hey, we got beer. And they're like, yeah, we'll take it at this point. Like that, I think that's the single most invaluable part of contracting for us in that moment. Yeah.
That's good advice though for people, because it's more just like to illustrate and that's great. Illustrate the benefits of it in a province that typically doesn't celebrate it, and it's sort of like set you up for success. Essentially, is what you're saying. You learned a lot. You got contracts. You learned what's good and what's not good. You dealt with these contract breweries, and you had your challenges with them, and maybe didn't get the exact end product that maybe you wanted, but at least you got some brand recognition out there in the market.
And I'll say this to the market, honestly. Respect the hell out of them for understanding, because you guys talked about like contracting in this province and whatever. I think, and Adam and I agree with this, your first impression is so important, but a lot of people took a lot of chances on us by just like kind of seeing our vision and seeing what we wanted to do. And like, is the beer so much better now than it was when we were contracting? Like, absolutely it was. There's no question. And that's not a knock to the contractors we were working with. It's just like, it's the nature of the beast. Like, that's the way the business works. But so many places kind of like took a chance on us. And we remember all of those, like, you know, first places we walked into and we're like, hey, you don't know us at all. Here's some beer. Yeah. Here's some beer. What do you think? You have a business to run. What do you think? And like, you know, shout out to Otto's Beer Hall. Rest in peace. First bar to ever take us on. Shout out to Evan, who was like, yeah.
Are we giving shout outs?
Yeah. Well,
I'm here for shout outs. Shout out all fucking day.
So many to the milkman. We got to give a shout out to Evan Court.
Shout out to milkman.
It was just like, hey.
Heavy cream.
It was like, hey, we're going to give this a shot. And from there, it was like, you know, we could kind of like go to someone else. And, you know, sometimes the licensee would be like, oh, where else are you selling? Be like, oh, we got into Otto's. And be like, oh, okay. Like back in that, like Otto's Beer Hall, like had a name.
In Kensington, right?
It was like Queen Westy.
Queen West and Dovercourt.
Yeah.
Queen Dovercourt. Okay.
But they, but yeah, like, anyone who like wants to start a brewery or whatever, it's just like there is an invaluable lesson of like just go hit the pavement and talk to people and don't be afraid to be like, hey, we're trying something here, because people will fucking talk to you. They won't like the ones. There are some people who will kind of like laugh you out the door, but fuck them, honestly. Like go, like you just keep going for it. And that, I think that's the single most invaluable part of contracting for us. And obviously that's from the sales side. Adam's side would be different, like honing in recipes or dealing with malt suppliers or whatever. Because another thing that we did was we took on a lot of our own suppliers early on, and that was a big point that Adam wanted to make, was like, let's not let our contractors decide what we use. We'll pay the extra to bring in what we wanted to use, and I think that was really important.
That's smart.
Yeah.
I love to see it. Guys, we're coming up on 3.5. This is
this
is
insane.
money. No, it's not insane. What's the longest was 5 hours, just shy of 5 hours with Third Moon. Because Chris did he has a, I don't know if you've ever
out there. Like, what did you guys do?
It was virtual. It was like 2020. They Chris has a basement. He lives in Hamilton or Burlington, and he has this basement where every wall space is covered in chicken wire, including the ceiling, and there's empty bottles and cans every single surface of that entire basement. Because he was a beer trader. Him and Bebo were beer traders essentially beforehand. Like, so they have, it's just. And he just took us on a tour, and we were lit, obviously, as we are right now. So, like, it was probably around this time in the pod, we was like, let me show you a tour of the basement. And that took like an hour and a bit or whatever the fuck to do that. It it was bonkers. But 3.5, most of them don't last 3.5. 3.5 is this is definitely an outlier.
No, this is very much on the long side.
I was telling
And you haven't toured any of our basements.
That's what I'm saying. Like, are you guys? Is it time?
Can I ask?
Can I take you down to the boiler room of my condo building?
Let's fucking
It's like
go.
a kitschy question, but like, what did you guys like the most? Like,
That's a good question.
It's a lame question, but like seriously, like this has been probably the most fun we've ever had. I'll speak for myself. It's the most fun I've ever had. Yes, and there we go. I agree.
I would say
Märzen, no question.
Märzen too.
Wow. Oh, man.
The close second, though, just for more fun,
The funsies.
would probably even just be in the OG pills, like clean, crisp pills.
Nice.
And once again, Nate and I seem to be inherently, in a great way, like just biased with the Festbiers and the how do you say it, Märzen?
Märzen.
I say
Märzen.
Märzen, but I might be an asshole.
No, that's
What was your- If you
that's
have-
what. Say that again.
I was gonna say, Nate, what was your second favorite outside of that? If you had one.
My second is Festbier. I'm staying in the same vein.
Say it. What were your favorites, Nate?
Sticks and or stones.
It's Sticks and Stones. Sticks and Stones.
Let's fucking go.
I don't remember which one's which.
Who even knows?
Doesn't matter. You don't.
It doesn't even matter.
No, but I'll not to keep you guys in a while, but
No, you're good.
I don't mean to speak for Adam and I, but this was a ton of fun. This was really cool. It's rare that we get to geek out about this shit, but it's very cool to geek out about it with people who care about it. And
Hell yeah.
are willing to drink
really
6
glad to
beers
hear
with
that.
us.
We're really glad to hear that, and it's entirely mutual. This has been a genuine pleasure chatting with you guys.
Oh, for real. I'd love to do this every year, like once a year type of thing.
I
Catch
thought you were
up.
gonna say every week, and I got a little excited.
We could do it every week. You want once a week? Let's fucking go.
We don't
Let's
have
make-
real hours every week.
Yeah, just
Nate,
hours
you
of.
should, Nate, you should group chat us at 6:30 when you're. Is it your son?
When my son's up, when it'll be a good 6 hours before Craig's up.
Nate, here's what you do:
It's facts.
save the 10 for 6:30, and there you go.
And give it to your.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
There it is.
It's
Oh.
only 3.7%.
At least let him smell it because he needs to know what he's getting into. This is the legacy that his father has, brought for him.
Yeah.
He'd be like, yo, you need to get to know Czech pale lagers, son. Tell me the difference between the 10 and the 12 now. And he doesn't have any verbal skills yet, but don't worry about
Holy
it.
shit.
Is there below Adam? It's below. Is there an 8 degree?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're
I feel like Godspeed's done an 8 degree. Godspeed's done an 8 degree. Like their little baby Sletny or whatnot. Yeah.
Svetli.
But they did an 8 degree as well. That was 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Those beers were fire. Not
Yeah,
sure
when
if
you can get to that low with that much flavor, it's pretty impressive. It's not something I personally would love to drink. I'm just cool with 4 to 5 is fine, but I think it's a skill that is pretty damn impressive to be able to do that shit.
When you guys crack open those cans, even though they're a couple months old, let us know what you think.
I don't give a fuck. Like, you can have lagers that are like mad old, and it's great. That's the best part about lagers is that like you don't have to really stress. And like as opposed to haze, I'm like, it's 2 weeks. Fuck, let's go.
That's the only advantage to lager-only breweries is that as much time as it takes on like the brewing side, you don't have to worry as much on like the storage side. You're not like, oh my god, we have to sell this in like 2 months. You're like, no, it can it'll
last 3
sell
days.
when it sells, and it's fine. And it just takes
it's
up
money.
space in our cold storage, which is its own nightmare.
It'll keep getting there.
Fridge logistics is its own thing.
We were actually talking about that, Adam and I, the other day about like there's certain breweries that have like separate fridge temperatures for like 4 degrees, 6 degrees, 8 degrees, 10 degrees, depending on the style and stuff.
Poincaré or whatever.
Poincaré,
yeah.
doing that.
One of my favorite beer bars of all time, and Harricana, Brasserie Harricana in Montreal does the same thing too. They have different temperatures and stuff. It's Is what I was, Matt. I was highly aggressively encouraging Adam and you to both hit up Montreal, and I would connect you with all the people that you need to know out there. If you don't already know.
Adam went to McGill, and my whole mom's side of my family is from Montreal. So there's a lot, and then Alan again is from Montreal. There's a lot of Montreal.
Alan was the dude who hated Quebec beer.
Wait, yeah.
Okay.
Hates is a strong word, but he has.
Well, not the greatest fan. I fucking love Quebec beer. I lived there for 10 years.
We're still recording.
I can't quantify Alan. Speaking about Alan without him being here, it feels like he needs to speak for himself.
You know what? Next pod, let's bring Alan on. We'll do this once a year, and let's bring Alan back
Let's do
on.
it.
How about you guys come to visit the brewery, and then we'll all meet in person.
Yeah,
That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
100%.
Fellas, we got to
great.
bring this thing home. I'm gonna die here.
Let's take a screenshot. Do you guys want to hold up some cans? We'll take a little
Oh.
screenshot here.
Which one? Does it matter?
Yo, no, you take your pick. I'm gonna hold up Six and Stones because me and Nate are stands of this brand right here. There we go. Look at fucking that. Oh yeah, look at that. Don't hide that pretty face, Matthew. Don't you dare. Who do you think you are?
I don't.
This is hard to do.
I know, right? It's okay. We can get that there. Everyone ready?
Yeah.
Beautiful, gentlemen. Where can everybody find True History online and in real life?
Online store is in the works. We're hoping to get it ready by December. We'll
Damn
figure
right.
out how that works. That's
For the
a
baby
bit of
Jesus
an
holiday. Let's
early
go.
surprise. Our retail shop and our tap room, and then licensees throughout the province. If you can't find in your province, talk to your favorite bottle shop, and we'll get it out there.
Love it. What's the Instagram?
True History. Brewing.
Brewing?
And then you can go to our website, follow our newsletter. We drop some stuff there as well.
Perfect. I'm just double checking that. True History Brewing Euchre. Just double check. Because honestly, you'd be surprised how many breweries don't know their own Instagram. True History Brewing. Grab that. Check that out. And what's the address? Physical address?
1154 St. Clair Avenue West. It's just east of St. Clair and Dufferin in Toronto.
Perfect. Love to see it. We'll just wrap this up here. Stick around. We'll wrap it up very quickly offline. But gentlemen, honestly, guys, thank you so much. Like 3.5 hours. This is a pretty epic session right here. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for the conversation and just being so chill and like honest about everything. This was as Nate said, just a fucking genuine pleasure. I'm around the corner and I need to get my ass up there, so I'm keep in touch, and I want to get up there before the end of the year to actually see the place, and I want to have a fucking Mliko Fest because I'm gonna become the milkman. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. I'll text Raz, let him know you're coming for the crown.
We should have a milkman off. Just throw heavy cream at each other. It's about to be a problem.
Oh my god.
We're not doing that.
We could get
that has to happen behind the brick wall.
Oh yeah, that'll happen. Because we're gonna get Pornhub to sponsor that. But gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell, Nathaniel.
Ding.
So you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast and of course at NathanDoesBeer. Check us out every week, every Wednesday. We drop the audio in the morning, the goddamn video in the evening. This episode will be out sort of early December, if I'm not mistaken. Guys, gentlemen, thank you again. Go get some crispy boys in ya in Toronto, St. Clair and Dufferin, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.
Heavy cream.